All right, there we go. It is recording for real now, and yeah, hopefully it works. We just tested this thing out for like an hour. I'm using a new app that was $10, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to use, but it seems like we got it now. It should sound pretty decent, and if it doesn't, well, fuck it, I guess. Speaking of fuck it. It's good, like, yeah, no introductions at all. The people don't even know what they're listening to. I guess we're going to be naming this OnTrack with DJ Traction. I'm here with my buddy, Mr. Foxy-Jackson.
Hello.
Can that be your official name?
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure, that works.
Awesome. Because it pretty much is his real name. I just added one letter. Yeah, so that I'm sure you probably have seen, because it's been everywhere, the Alaskan news reporter who quit her job on air. Because I guess she owns a dispensary or
she owns
something.
The only dispensary in Alaska.
In Alaska.
And she said that she got the business license on 420. And
so poetic.
Yeah, right? And I guess she's making enough money that she was able to leave a job that she worked her whole life to get on air. And pretty much, I assume now she's blacklisted because, I mean, who's going to want to hire someone that did that after that, you know?
It seemed like also that, because I guess they haven't totally legalized it there, so there's some fight in that, and she's obviously a supporter of that. And just from the clip that I saw, it seems like she was probably pressured from her job. Maybe, like, the owner or something like that isn't for, legalizing marijuana there. Because she did say, like, in it, she was like, not that I have a choice. Fuck it, I quit.
Yeah.
It seemed like she probably didn't want to quit that job, but she was getting some sort of outside pressure. It seemed like it was a 10-second clip, so who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
I'm like looking into it. But that's what it seemed like.
Well, now Vice has a interview with her. So that's how I know that she got the business license on 420 and that she's doing well enough. But I mean, it's the only like way to get weed legally in Alaska, so I don't know if it was more just a statement like on her own behalf, and if legislation goes through that makes it easier, that maybe she'll then be kind of screwed in the long run. But I
was gonna say maybe she's just out for like, this is the best marketing opportunity I have for my dispensary. I'm gonna take it. I mean, I admire her standing up for what she believes in and everything. I don't particularly condone like cursing on air and doing it that way.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going to be cursing a lot, but I'm not on TV.
Yeah.
So it's a little different when you're on like regular cable channel there, your local news and stuff. You can't just be doing whatever you want.
Yeah, maybe some kids were getting ready for school or something, and
or get ready for sleep. I don't even know what time that thing even aired. So.
But Alaska, I think it's bright all the time, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it depends on what month it was. It could have been daytime, no matter what time.
Speaking of Alaska, have you seen the movie Insomnia with
was that?
Robin Williams was in it.
It was Robin Williams, yeah.
Al Pacino.
And I was going to say Al Pacino, and then I was like, maybe it was Andy Garcia. It was Al Pacino. I did see that. That shit was pretty dope.
But that was definitely one of those, it was a good movie, but it's definitely one of those movies where it's like, how'd you get to that conclusion? Seriously. And it doesn't help that that's like right on the downward part of Al Pacino's like sanity, pretty much, and like in that movie the whole time he's just talking like this and it seems like he's losing his mind.
It's funny. It's become like his thing. Because I was just watching, was it Stand Up Guys? I think I had him and Christopher Walken.
Was that good?
It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was just pretty fun, entertaining movie. It wasn't like awesome or perfect or anything, but it was cool. Because it was, what was cool about it? It was just them doing what they do.
Huh.
So it's like, if you just like Christopher Walken doing what he does, perfect. If you like Al Pacino talking like that every now and then, then that was great too. And, it was pretty cool. There was some action to it. It was like, what it was like? It was like,
No punctuation in the movie?
No, what was that movie that just had, Morgan Freeman and like Michael Douglas and I think Robert De Niro, they all Las Vegas.
Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but it makes me think it was like that, but like in a gangster version. So it was like old gangsters kind of doing like the last hoorah of gangster shit,
Anything with celebrities acknowledging that they're old and playing on that, to me, is great.
It's awesome, yeah.
I love, did you see the Red series of movies with Bruce Willis?
I didn't. I think I saw the first one.
They're silly fun.
Exactly.
Like, there's one point where he drifts with his car, does like a full U-turn, and while he's U-turning, steps out of the car and starts shooting
I
someone.
did see that.
Like, it's that over the top.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be a little stupid, you know.
Oh, it's definitely supposed to be kind of stupid.
Yeah, if you go into it knowing that, then it changes. It's all the context of what you go into it with, the way you're expecting. You know, sometimes I was listening to something just the other day. Fuck, I forgot what it was, but they were talking about The Walking Dead, and they're talking about how they like the show, but the dude was like, yeah, but the sound effects are all the same. It's like every time they cut somebody's head open, it's the same damn sound effect.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, really? That's what, like, first of all, you're paying a lot of attention to actually notice that. And it's like, that's what gets you. That's the unrealistic part about it, is the noise it makes. Never mind the zombies that are walking around. It's the unrealistic noise is what kills it for you.
Sometimes, though, I feel like that does take people out of things, you know, when they catch some, like, there's one thing that's in a laugh track that once you hear it, you'll never be able to unhear it. It's this certain, like, weird laugh. It doesn't even sound like a person laughing. It's like this weird, like, sound. And for some reason, like, they put it, I guess it's good filler noise for that sound. But once you, like, hear it, like, watch Big Bang Theory or something, you'll hear it every 5 seconds. You're going to be like, what is that?
Hey, why are they using the same guy?
Yeah.
Nobody laughs like that. No, I mean, I get it. I've definitely watched stuff where you like certain movement. I guess maybe it's sometimes when they're like, if it's something physical like the character's doing, like you said, like that Bruce Willis thing or whatever, where it's like, come on, man, that shit would never happen. And you like totally disregard all the other bullshit that's going on in the movie. Never mind that it's like, you know, it could have been Star Wars and they're in fucking space and shit. Like, that part doesn't get to you, but some little thing in the hand-to-hand combat or whatever, it'd be like, oh, come on, that would never happen.
Yeah, and that's why they took so much care in Star Wars to make sure that the sound effects were so, like, well put together, because anything could take you out of that experience of that time. Like, that movie was so weird for its time.
Who knows what a lightsaber sounds like? You can make that shit sound like anything.
But the guy, actually, he went for, like, he went basically on a trip. I think he was trying to record jets or something, and while he was on this trip, he stayed in this shanty hotel, and it had this broken radiator or air conditioning system, and it made this certain noise that he then decided to make the lightsaber noise.
Nice.
And so all the lightsaber fights, he's actually holding a long mic, and he's swinging along with them to get, like, the sound to, like, go along with it. So, like, I don't know, like, if you really were to think about it, like, maybe it wouldn't sound like that, but the fact that he put that much care into it makes you not think about it.
Yeah,
you know?
well, it does. It seems like it's like when you turn on like fluorescent lights in something like an old building or something, and it takes a second and you hear it. It's real low, but it has that same type of sound to it. You know, so that would make me definitely think like, oh yeah, a lightsaber would probably sound like that.
Actually, that's true.
Sound design is pretty cool, yeah. Like I kind of went like. I didn't go to school for sound design, but I went for audio engineering and studio production and stuff like that, more so for music, but one of my interests went that way into sound design, especially for movies. Like, I remember seeing something about, like, Jurassic Park, what they did for, like, the dinosaurs' roars. And any type of movie when there's, like, some type of monster that's just not real. Like, how do you get something that's going to sound realistic for something that nobody knows what it sounds like and doesn't exist?
Yeah.
You know? And it was cool, because they do tons of layering from, like, lion roars and a whole bunch of other stuff to even, like, explosions that they can use, and just the way they mix it all down to make it sound like a T-Rex roaring. Yeah. Fucking awesome.
One of the sounds for the T-Rex roaring is actually, I think, a dryer being dragged. And that actually, this goes back to what I was saying. That's done by Skywalker Sound. And that's the production company that came out of the Star Wars movies. Yeah, they're a huge sound company. But you'll notice that now, anytime you hear something roar in, like, Godzilla or whatever movie, they all are trying to replicate that T-Rex noise.
Yeah.
So, like, it's, like, crazy how much impact that had after that. I mean, that movie is huge, but...
Yeah, but it's also kind of crazy how well, like, the graphics actually stand up in that pretty damn well. Like, it looks good, you know? A lot of stuff looks really good on it. Especially if you compare it to, like, the new Godzilla movie where it's all CGI and you're like... You can just tell.
Yeah.
Like, it has so much screen time that you can dissect it, and you're like, I mean, yeah, I guess it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks better than what the fucking other Godzilla shit that kind of looked more like a T-Rex, like the 2001
Oh, with
one or
Matthew
2002 or
Broderick?
something. Yeah, that shit looks like a crazy mutated lizard or something. This one looked like what you would think the original Godzilla would look like if they had
Yeah.
better capabilities back then, you know? But you could still tell, like, all right, that's just not real. That
Yeah.
T-Rex, you could be like, yeah, that shit might be in my backyard. It would scare the shit out of me, you know?
Well, so there's two reasons for that. One is the editing, which Steven Spielberg started learning from Jaws. Because if you actually look at the Jaws puppet, or the machine that they use for Jaws, it's actually really horrible looking.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they edited that movie that certain specific way so it would only have so much screen time and look good for that limited amount of time. So he learned from that, and then also, since that was like the first movie to like really like say like we're going all out with CGI, they were basically trying to prove themselves. And they were trying to show up, I want to say his name was Plimpton. He also worked on RoboCop.
RoboCop was the shit when that came out.
Yeah, and that was all stop animation. Stop motion.
That one doesn't hold up as well, though.
Yeah, yeah.
You watch that, you're like, no.
Yeah, and that was all, or he doesn't call it stop animation, he calls it go motion or whatever. And all this stuff in Jurassic Park, he still worked on, but he basically, the way that they do now with like the ping pong balls all over you, he did that with stop motion, like dinosaurs. He would do the stop motion, and then they then translated that over to the movements because he was such an expert in animal movements.
And that's what it takes. That's another thing with some of these like monster things. That's where it loses it a lot, is in the movements.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, would something, I mean, nobody knows how it would move, but it doesn't really look like it would move that way.
Yeah.
Same thing when they do of animals that do exist. Like, there was a part in 300 where it's like the flashback part, and he's like killing the monster wolf or whatever.
Oh my God, that was the worst thing ever.
Even if you giving it that graphic novel tint to it, where it could look a little cartoony, it didn't look good.
Yeah, it just
looked
looks so wrong.
Especially with the other stuff in it, looked really good. Like from the Immortals and stuff, and some of the other like monster things that they had in the battle scenes, looked good and everything. But that wolf was not good at all.
I think what looked the best about it is that it was all consistent, so it all had that graphic novel feel.
Yeah, that's what helped it.
So some parts would look bad or would look silly if it were supposed to be like a gritty, realistic Spartan movie, but since it all had that feel, everything felt consistent, you know?
Yeah. It's movement and hair. You know, you can't, that's when you can tell, like, there's some CGI fuckery going on here. Because the hair doesn't move quite the way it should or is as detailed. Because, how hard can that, is that? Yeah, the actual hair is like very small.
Yeah. And then there's usually, like, if they don't have the time to render it out, or if they don't have the time to just work on it, because it's like crazy. They make such little money.
Yeah, I was going to say, it would get extremely expensive.
Yeah.
To do that, to take all the time.
And so that's another part of why Jurassic Park looks so good, is that
dinosaurs don't have hair. That's why.
Well, now they know they have feathers.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons it looks so good was because they took the care and the time to do it, because it was something so new that it was almost exciting to put in that overtime, you know? And it's like there's so many little steps in it that now they just do it because it's cheaper than having to build the shit, you know?
Yeah.
But like they still, in parts of Jurassic Park, they were the first people to build an entire object that size out of clay and then mold it. You can find like videos of them making that giant T-Rex by hand.
That's why it holds up. You know? It looks really good.
They knew exactly when to use that and when not to, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like it was one of those... It seems like at the time you have to know, like, man, we know nothing like this has been done before. We pull it off. Even though we're spending so much on it, we're definitely going to get all that back.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, people are going to see this time and time again just to be like... to like confirm what they just saw the first time. Yeah,
so actually I read yesterday that, talking about the budgets and making it back, the movie Gravity costs more than the recent mission that India now has a ship in orbit of Mars. The movie Gravity costs more than that.
Costs more than actually sending a ship to Mars.
And you have to think that technically it didn't cost more because how much did Gravity make? Technically, Gravity cost nothing to make because they made way more than that.
Yeah, and when you take in what you made. But if you're just looking at it like, hey, how much does it cost to make this? Well, this is how much it costs. And then if you never do anything with it, then that's how much it costs. Like, yeah, when you go and actually sell it and use it to make money, then, yeah, it all works out. Everybody makes money, and, you know, it's a wash. It didn't quote-unquote cost you anything, but you had to lay out a whole bunch of money to begin with.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt that he was kind of smart with that money, because he had to, Alfonso Cuarón, I think that's his name, he had to build a specific rig so they had lights all around them. So because that movie, if you think about it, is technically a cartoon because it's like 90% CG.
Yeah.
You know, so basically what he did was they had this whole CG movie set up and they had all the lighting for those scenes and it would be simulated through these lights. So the parts where their heads are composited in there, it actually looks real. And I wouldn't doubt that he has been like, you know, renting out that equipment now that he's kind of invented it.
Right.
You know?
I wonder, same thing with Avatar and
James Cameron,
the way that he shot that. But I don't really recall anything else using it yet. Like, at least, and if they did, they didn't make a big deal out of it.
I mean, just think about how many crappy 3D movies came out after that, you know?
Yeah, but I don't feel like that's what they used, because they were, again, just kind of crap. Like, they weren't made, they didn't go into making the whole movie, like, as a 3D experience. Like, some of those movies that come out in 3D also are just like, oh, sometimes some shit on the edge here, like the grass is a little closer to me, you know? They're not really going into it being like, oh, this is going to be an awesome 3D masterpiece or something.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the big thing about Avatar was, and I think it was kind of important because it's fucking blue people. Like, you know, like, that's so unbelievable that having that extra layer of, like, they basically just made it so everything looked slightly closer, like it had real depth.
Yeah.
And that was, like, I think that was enough to kind of make it more believable, and I don't think enough people want to take the time to put that in, so they just kind of are like, oh yeah, 3D movies can make more because, like, there's a whole, like, because you pay more for 3D movies, and they have to rent out these projectors and stuff, but they still end up making more off of them, and that's the big reason why 3D movies became so huge.
But I think the more they have it, again, when it's just like some little stuff in like the foreground or like in the scenery that is popping out and not really using it to its full capabilities, why am I going to spend the other extra money to see it in 3D?
Yeah.
You know, at some point people are going to be like, all right, well, I'm done with this, until the feedback is like, this movie you need to see in 3D.
Yeah.
You know, certain ones. And I feel like, you know, Gravity would have been something really cool to see in 3D. I didn't watch it in 3D or in like IMAX, like real IMAX. I think I saw Godzilla in 3D because I thought that would have been cool.
Yeah, it seemed like that'd be cool in 3D, except for the fact that it wasn't that much Godzilla stuff.
Yeah.
But
maybe I just wonder, did they just have it in regular IMAX, but like not 3D?
I don't know.
I feel like I wasn't wearing glasses, but I might have been.
Yeah, maybe it was just IMAX.
Yeah, I think it was just IMAX and wasn't 3D. And it was like, alright.
So, but you didn't like the Godzilla movie anyway, though, right?
Not as like a movie, as like a good story and stuff. Like, no. Especially the way they sold it. Like, I was like, oh, Bryan Cranston's gonna be in this? This is gonna be awesome, right?
Yeah.
I definitely want to see what he does with it. And the scenes that he were in were great. And spoiler alert for anyone who didn't see it, you should probably stop listening to this right now.
Or just cover your ears for a short period of time.
Yeah. If you're gonna shut it off, I'll give you 2 seconds. Ready? 1, 2. You've been warned, now we're talking about it.
Bryan Cranston dies.
There you go. In like 20 minutes. Like, he was in the first 20 minutes, and he was obviously awesome in the 20 minutes that he was on screen. And then he dies, and the movie's about his fucking lucky as hell son, who's in,
Kick-ass.
I don't know, 14 life or death situations where everybody dies, and, you know, he gets through it.
Yeah, and you realize that was Kick-Ass, right?
No, not at the time.
Yeah, that was that
I've heard it since, but not.
Yeah, it's the kid from the Kick-Ass movie, and the second I saw him, I recognized that, and it was really weird for me because he looks like a grown-ass man now, and then I think he did Kick-Ass 2 after that, or around that time, and he goes back to looking like he's in high school. It's
Maybe
so weird.
CGI'd him to look like a kid.
But I almost feel like he did a good performance in that movie. I felt, and
yeah, no, I didn't think like anything was like really bad about it. It was just the overall, like I said, just the story and feel to it. I'm like, really, like this is the way they went with it, like especially the fight scene at the end, where he blows the blue fire or whatever into him. I'm like, yo, you were fighting with him for 30 minutes? Why did you just do? Why wasn't that your first move?
Yeah, I don't know if there's some sort of thing that maybe I missed that like he needed exposure to radiate. I don't know, but like that was another thing with Pacific Rim, which I thought was a really fun movie. Did you end up watching it?
I couldn't.
After I wrote that.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
It's really fun, and I saw it in theaters. So people have said since that if you watch it on like on your Mac. It looks like it's like toys fighting.
Yeah.
But since I saw it in a theater, it looked great. And that movie, Guillermo del Toro actually said, like, I want you to watch this like you watched movies when you were a little kid. And in turn, going into it that something's not going to work. Something's not going to make sense. And so, spoiler, in that movie, all of a sudden, the giant robot has a sword. And he uses it as like a last-ditch effort to kill the thing. And so, two parts to that. One, all of a sudden it has a sword that it never had before. Second part is, they explain in the beginning, like, the reason why they aren't attacking these things with, like, jets and stuff is because their blood is, like, acidic, and when it gets into the water, like, it poisons the water. So they just completely disregarded that, and just
kill it at the end anyway?
Get sliced open, and, like, his blood just pours out everywhere.
At the end of Godzilla, like, I don't remember the exact numbers of it and everything, but I do remember at the time being like, wait a minute, that's not right, because there was a certain time left in the bomb on the boat, and they said like had to be certain miles away, and there was like no way possible for the boat to get 10 miles away in the 2 minutes that that it had until the bomb went off. So I'm like, everybody on the coast here is all good though, apparently. Like, the bomb just went off and everybody's all right. I'm like, nope, sorry.
It's crazy to think though, even though like atomic bomb.
That's what did it for me. Not the fact that there was a fucking monster, 3 different monsters in the fucking thing. I was cool with that part. It was the technical part of that boat can't go that fucking fast.
What's crazy though is if you look at a thing for the atomic bomb or any bomb, there's like a thing online where you can drop a bomb on a spot on Google Earth and it'll show you like the radius of what it'll affect. And it's not as big as you'd think. You gotta think, they dropped 2 of those on Japan. Japan's tiny,
Yeah.
And they still have like a country. Like, so although I'm not gonna say that the nuclear bomb is like nothing, but it's like, it's not as humongous as you'd think. Like, I think if they dropped a nuclear bomb in New York City, which I'm not saying that we're going to do, so don't put me on any lists that I'm not already on.
Oh, you know what? Let me stop you there. I meant to say this in the beginning, being the first episode. If you search this on iTunes or anything, it's in the comedy section. All right? I think that's an important distinction. You know what? I've done open mics as a comedian. It's not true. But I think I might, just because if you're a comedian, you can get away with saying almost anything you want, and it's okay. When you're not, that's when you end up on these fucking lists and shit. So we're both comedians, so anything we say is done in that, aspect of comedy. So don't take us too seriously on some of the ridiculous stuff that might be said during this, all right? I need to say that. Like, there was, with the Ray Rice thing, what made me think of that was Paul George, player for the Pacers. He tweeted something after they had gotten married. It's like, so Ray Rice basically beat up his fiance, and then they got married after it. And he was like, man, if she's cool with it, I'm cool with it, let him play.
Oh, man.
But I think he put an LOL at the end, too, or something like that. But it was obviously, like, he's kidding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But since he's a basketball player, not a comedian, he got a bunch of shit for it. Now, if it was, like, a tweet from Louis C.K. or Kevin Hart or fucking any other comedian, nobody would have looked twice at it.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, man, maybe you should have hashtagged too soon, I don't know. But they would have just laughed and it wouldn't have been anything. So, like, that's so weird. Like, there's different standards, and again, the context of the way people view it, that can totally fuck you.
Yeah, but I do think, to an extent, like, say, if the same thing happened with Ray Rice that happened with, like, say, Louis C.K., I don't think it would be as much of an issue, and there wouldn't be places that are like, hey, we're not letting you play our club, and, I don't think TBS would take him off air because those, you know, athletes are considered like role models,
Yeah.
which I don't think is really a great thing to begin with. But, you know, they're considered role models, and so that's why everything that they say has this, like, huge credence, because there are some kids that are, like, you know, on the autistic spectrum and don't get that LOL could mean that you're being sarcastic, you know, and stuff like that. And so that's where, like...
Yeah, but are they really surfing Twitter like that, too?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Twitter's key demographic right there.
Is autistic kids?
Yeah, autistic kids. You'd be surprised how big the spectrum is, man. And there's, like, people that are, like, slightly on the spectrum that just, like, don't get sarcasm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, I had students like that before who, like, they don't get that you're kind of trying to get them to shut up. You know, like, you're trying not to say, like, hey, kid, shut up. We all get it. You know about Australia. This is actually a real life situation I had. And the thing is, for the people that don't know, I'm an art teacher. And so sometimes I need to teach about other cultures. And sometimes these kids will know way more about these other cultures than I do, and it becomes sort of embarrassing. And I want to find a way to tell them to shut up.
Without telling them to shut up.
But yeah, if they're on the spectrum, they don't take those, like, social
those cues. Yeah.
So, like, you'll be like, anyway, so continuing on, and they'll be like, anyway, the echidna is saying...
Yeah, well, I guess I just have to ignore you then. That's my only recourse. All right. What you said about role models too, and it being I guess a different set of standards. Like, no one would probably bar Louis C.K. from playing if he was in that same situation. There was something going around with all, like, the different accusations and crimes that, like, members of Congress have committed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And how it's the same thing. Nobody keeps them out of office or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to quit. They don't get suspended for a year or something like that. You know, that double standard stuff really, it gets to me, you know, especially when it's people that are in office that are making, like, they're the decision makers and policy makers, and, like, the oversight that they get is pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's some, like they say that there is some, you know, but there's nothing really, really keeping them to their word. Especially just the way, this is how, in a nutshell, like, when you run for office, you can say whatever the fuck you want, right? Any campaign promise, whatever it is. You can get elected, do the exact opposite, and there's no recourse to get you out.
Yeah.
That's false advertising.
You just have to make sure that in, you know, 2 years or 4 years that you're making it look like you're making an effort to do that, so you get reelected.
So you can start saying the same stuff again, and hopefully that they forgot.
Yeah.
You know, which they usually do. It's amazing. I don't know, like, how can you run a country for so long that way? I guess that's probably why people think it's falling apart now.
I think a big part of it is that everything is now bipartisan. So, you know, everybody wants to choose one side, and they feel like they're betraying their side if they align themselves with something else.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that'll affect the way people think. And I'll hear people talk about things that they want for themselves, and then talk about who they support, and I'm like, you understand you're not going to get that, right? Like, I have a person that I know personally who is against government health care, but also never goes to the doctor for any of his problems because he doesn't have the money to pay for a doctor. And it's like, you understand that if you were for this thing, it would be helping you out.
It's like,
right?
you're literally, like, putting your life on the line for your ideology.
Yeah, yeah. And meanwhile, you're not putting, like, homeless people's lives on the line. You're paying for their healthcare. You're just not paying for your own through your taxes. Like, it's crazy.
It comes to, like, it's definitely a part of just human nature, like, wanting to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it's Team Republican, Team Democrat, Team iPhone, Team Galaxy, like, everybody, like, migrates to that, and then they'll fight tooth and nail for their team, and not really the actual issue or actual feature of their fucking MacBook or whatever versus, you know, a Dell or some shit like that. Like, it's just like, no, fucking Team Mac, so it's Mac to the death, man. We'll go to war over it, you know?
Yeah, and you end up getting into these situations where they just start throwing straw man arguments in and all these sort of logical fallacies by just being like, well, your side's stupid, so...
Yeah,
like,
it's great when it just, like, declines into that. Until, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's your argument? Fuck me? Okay.
I have more respect for a person who, in a conversation about something, will change their views than a person who's so steadfast in them that, like, they would never even question them.
Yeah, or you at least see, or at least can accept it as another possibility. Be like, yeah, that is possible, but and you know, and then actually back up their side with something that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't. There's way too many people, and it just always seems to just erode into name calling. And it's what's crazy about it is because that's what you see. Like if you watch fucking Fox, CNN, whatever it is, they have shows where it's just it's 6 heads on a screen, and they have to talk for 10 minutes about whatever actual big issue it is, but they're just yelling this team versus this team, and everyone's yelling, and nothing actually gets accomplished. There's no points being made.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's what trickles down to, I guess, to all the way down to YouTube comments, you know?
Yeah, and a big thing on those shows are that they filter those people out.
Yeah.
They're looking for a certain number of people to represent one thing and a certain number of people to represent another thing. So when people look at that, they think that we're really split 50-50, whereas, like, you know, there aren't really, you know, half the country isn't really against gay marriage, but half of those, you know, pundits or whatever they call them were, because that's how they filtered it. They don't want to make it seem like they're being unbiased, but really what they're doing is they're putting their biases on there, and like it's just wild how much like stuff is just controlled like that.
And it's weird, like those Gallup polls and all that other stuff, like, because they have polls about everything to get statistics. I've never been asked anything.
Yeah, me either.
And I sign up for a lot of stuff, like inadvertently. Like my email addresses, I get emails all the fucking time from a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And never once was in an email like, "Hey, what's your take on gay marriage? Are you for or against it, or anything?" Like, I've never gotten asked for a poll, and nobody I know has ever been asked for any type of poll. So what kind of statistics is this? Like, what are they really given?
Yeah.
Is it just? I mean, is it nationwide? Are they sending emails or however they're doing it to, like, let's say 10 people in each state or something, and it's just kind of random and let's see what we get back? Or is it 100 people that all live in Arkansas or something like that for whatever issue?
That's what I wonder about some of those things, that it's state-based, because since we're in New York, they consider New York to be a certain way, although it's a pretty mixed place.
Very diverse, yeah.
Like, technically, are we technically a red state?
No, we're technically a blue state.
Oh, okay. But I would say that I see a whole lot of red state sort of things going on around here. So I think we're a pretty mixed area, and but I think they sort of, you know, certain areas they consider to be one way or another. So, like, they probably do those polls in, like, Ohio and not...
Yeah, there probably is, like, those battleground states.
You should just put your old address for...
Yeah, I know, right? That's what's weird. Even when I lived in Ohio, I didn't get not one email, man. Nothing. I didn't get anything.
Well, then you also probably have to be like 32 to 54 in order to be in their key demographic that they care about.
That could be, too. That could be. But that's another thing where it's like, the two-party system is just not... Like, both of them have good ideas on certain things. But it's like, I don't want to fully commit to almost either one of them, because it's like, yeah, you might do this good here and here, but these other few things are going to fuck shit up. Yeah. And I'm not really for those. But you can't, there's nowhere to pick like 2 from column A and 3 from column B, like a Chinese restaurant or something like that, when it comes to these type of things. And I think really all that stuff, it comes down to like the finance reform in politics. You know, because whenever there's a lot of money, like that's going to have a whole shit ton of influence. And it's so weird that it's gotten to the point where everybody knows that, yet not one thing is being done about it. You know? It's like very transparent. It's not even like up for debate whether it's a problem or not. Everybody is pretty much in agreement with it, and everybody's just like, yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's get these 6 heads yelling about gay marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I wonder how possible it is to really do anything about that, though, because, I mean, although...
Nuclear bomb. That's the only way. You start from scratch. You have to kill everybody off, start from scratch, and be like, hey, this is the new way we're doing it. Because why would they change? Like, the people that have to change it are the people that are getting paid. So I'm like, why the fuck am I going to change this? Wait, I'm going to stop them from giving me all the money they're giving? Nah, fuck you.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that we're spending all this money to have the regular citizen be watched on a regular basis, but we're not spending all this money, like, I mean, you're opting in to be a senator or whatever position of power, so shouldn't you also be opting into some sort of surveillance system where they're making sure that, like, you're not making decisions based off of who's giving you money or things like that?
Yeah. I mean, and it's very clear in a lot of them. Like, they have to, declare pretty much a good portion of the where they get their money from. I mean, it gets a little sketchy with like the super PACs and stuff like that, because they don't really have to say who's in the super PAC, so that is a little shadowy. But a lot of the donors are pretty much public domain, and you can find out. And when you just put them next to each other, you're like, oh, this guy argues against, climate change or whatever, and his big three sponsors are like big oil and whatever it is. Like, those are where he gets the majority of his money from.
Yeah.
And they make, and it's even the way that they argue against it when it's on something like C-SPAN or CNN or wherever. They're not even using anything that makes sense. Like, they're just arguing it, and it's so obvious, and it feels like you can't be this dumb, right? Like, you're doing this. You know that we know you get your money from here, and you're making an argument against climate change to a scientist by using just nonsense. You're just talking, like, just bullshit that you don't know anything about. And the guy's clearly there telling you, he's like, yeah, no, it doesn't really work that way. And you're still fighting it. It was something that I saw recently about that, actually. I think it was The Daily Show, and it was the committee of, like, technology and science research or something like that. Not that it's all congressmen. It's not like there's a scientist on that committee, It's just the congressmen arguing against, well, what it was at the time was the climate change and stuff. And that, oh, this is where you get all your money from. No wonder why you're making this argument. Same thing with like the FDA and like the labeling for GMOs and stuff, and that fight and all that other thing. It's like, oh, the people against it get paid from Monsanto and fucking whatever big agriculture corporations.
So I do want to. I actually knew at some point this was going to come up. I do actually want to talk about GMOs because that's a big blanket statement that gets put on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So something that is bred in a certain way to survive like a harsh or like a inclement summer is technically GMO, although it was just, selective breeding.
Yeah.
What the real problem is Monsanto. And they're starting to say that there's being misinformation being sent around. That basically and the thing is, you have to then look where these researchers are getting their funding from.
Exactly.
But they've been saying that the misinformation is coming from farmers, and farmers are they're getting fucked right now by Monsanto because they're basically making these infertile,
seeds.
Yeah, so basically you'll plant them, you'll get one generation, and then you have to go back to them to buy
yeah, they have
seeds.
to buy the seeds from Monsanto, and they have to grow that seed. It doesn't regrow, then they have to go back and buy the seeds again.
Yeah, and so they're saying some misinformation is being spread about that because there's people who are losing out, and so it goes back to what we were saying before about how people's arguments start becoming just insane because they have this one stance that they're trying to hold up. So people will try to defend by any means necessary. And so they're starting to believe that, this is basically misinformation being sent out by people who really do have a just
concern.
Yeah, just concern, but it's one of these things it's just becoming like absolutely insane.
You know what? I think some of what has to do with it is like it's hard to get people to care. So sometimes they do resort to just like whether it's a scare tactic, whatever you want to call it, or just, hey, fuck you type of arguments, just to get someone to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like a lot of people aren't going to go and do additional research after that. They're just going to take that fuck you statement and run with it, which, again, doesn't really help anything in the long run. And I don't know. I see a lot of things on both sides. I personally just try to avoid it in what I eat. Obviously, I'm not a fucking nighthawk about it. Like, whatever, if it's in something I go out or whatever like that, it is what it is. But I think there are valid concerns, and there doesn't seem to be like a good checks and balances when it comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, and I definitely agree that everything going into your body, the government should be protecting you and making sure that you're not putting volatile things in your body.
Agreed.
But
not even that you shouldn't be, but that you should know if it is.
Yeah.
If it's in there or if it could cause that. And then you can make your decision. Like, well, no, I'm still going to eat that fruit roll-up or whatever it is. Like, then that's fine.
Yeah. And so I think, unless you're eating only vegetables that are grown within, the tri-state area that are, seasonal, chances are you're eating some sort of GMO, because getting something from California or Georgia to here is, the chances are by the time it gets here, it's going to be next to rotten.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's like this perception that if something tells you it's not GMO, that it's, good for you. But in all reality, at some point, it was modified to be this way that it would, withstand bringing avocados from California to New York.
But it's
by truck.
But it's weird that avocados might be a tad bit of a bad example. I think Hass avocados are pretty much can be grown all year.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, Hass avocados, but green avocados, which is
kind
of more delicious.
I don't know. I kind of disagree.
Yeah.
I don't know, only because I've been buying a lot of both lately, and I make guacamole out of it and stuff. And I've noticed that the ones that aren't Hass, like, the taste is a little more bland, and they're a lot, I don't know, more just it's more difficult to work with. Like the brown a lot easier. I've noticed and stuff. Sometimes it'd be weird where it's like it's browning, but also not ripe where I could just mash it up. Like I have to use a knife and cut chunks, and it was, like I said, just hard to work with. But anyway.
But so, do you know why you can grow Hass avocados pretty much anywhere? Because at one point there was a mailman in California who modified these avocados until he was able to distribute those seeds to people.
But that's also how we got dogs. It's like the breeding is different than, I don't want my dog to drown, so let's inject them with like fish DNA or something like that.
And you know what? I eat Shih Tzus every day, and I still haven't gotten like any sort of Shih Tzu pancreatic cancer. So,
going back to our disclaimer, he doesn't really eat Shih Tzus, okay?
Oh, and so from that disclaimer, when I dropped the atomic bomb on New York City, there's a site online where you can see how far it'll get out, and I don't think it would actually, the fallout would reach, the area we're in right now, in Nassau County. So it's
unless it's a windy day. That affects it.
I think that was that they show that on there. Like there's several circles of like direct damage, fallout, and like.
Imagine if there's a hurricane at the same time that happens.
Right.
Like. Holy shit.
Or maybe a Sharknado could happen.
Yeah. It's like radiation and flying fucking sharks. Man, I guess I'm staying in my basement for a long time. Until I die of starvation.
Have you actually seen those Sharknado movies?
I haven't yet. I'm dying to see the first one. I just haven't watched it yet.
They're funny. I saw a little bit of the first one. I saw more of the second one. The second one literally... Like, I'm surprised Danny Trejo wasn't in it. Because there's, like, literally a celebrity every second. Like, you turn around and it's just, like, Andy Dick is just, like, hey, and just walks away. Like, they're so useless. Such useless celebrity cameos throughout that whole movie. And I think they're already working on a third one.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. My mom is, for some reason, obsessed with it. And she does these parties, these, like, Sharknado parties.
Oh, that's great.
And, like, she had, like, mixed drinks with, like, gummy sharks in it and stuff. Like, she went all out.
I saw something about, it's called a shark bite. It's a shot. I don't know how they made it. It was some video that I saw. Tipsy Bartender, I think it was.
They put the grenadine in there. And
It's just, like, I think the blues...
Curacao.
Yeah, that shit. And I don't know what, maybe it was vodka they used or something. I'm sure there was some type of actual liquor, because if you just had a shot of those two things, it would suck. But the way they dropped
it would be delicious. You just
would
never get drunk.
Yeah, you just, like, get diabetes and not get drunk. That would be the only difference.
Might as well just be drinking Four Locos at that point.
Oh man, do they still make those?
They still make them.
They modified it, like.
Yeah, I think it no longer contains cocaine
acetate
or meth or whatever was in there. But since it's the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the public schools have off.
Oh yeah, am I even allowed to be doing this right now? Is this considered work? I don't know.
The sun's still up, so I think you might be okay.
All right, bet. Half of me is okay.
I had to say that to my class last night. I was like, "Does anyone need to be out of here by sundown?" And they were like. Like they're looking at me like, are we werewolves or something? Like, because of Rosh Hashanah. And they're like, oh, okay.
My girlfriend was in like crazy traffic yesterday coming home, and it was like, in between like 5 and 6. And I was like, she's like, yeah, everyone's rushing to get home. And I'm like, what happens if they don't get home? Because like, yeah, they're all rushing, but traffic is traffic. Over. Yeah, do they just leave their car there and start walking home? Like, I was like, maybe like, the real serious, like, Hasidic Jews or something like that would do that, I guess. But
I think probably the real serious ones have already planned around that.
Yeah, they took that day off. They're like, I'm not even going to work. I'm not going to chance it. Unless they got out at 2 o'clock.
Where was she coming from yesterday that she had?
From Queens. She was on LA.
Yeah, yesterday it was insane.
Yeah.
It's because they were doing all that UN stuff in New York City, so there's like crazy delays right now. And then, I was probably stuck in the same
I hate going to
traffic
the city when like you don't know something's happening there, and it just totally ruins your day. Like I remember going once on like a Tuesday. I had to go down to the Scratch Academy office. I was like meeting with a client, like a wedding client, and I just drove down. This is during the day, like noontime. I'm like, oh, I'll shoot right down there, shoot up, no problem. There was some type of, I don't know if it was a protest or if like the president was in the city or whatever it was that I didn't know about, and every other road is like shut down and stuff. You can only go a certain way, and it fucking took me forever. What's normally a 40-minute drive took me like an hour and 55 minutes or something like that. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. It totally just put a damper on my day, thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get all this done and I have this block of time for this, and now, oh no, my whole day is this now, just getting here and getting home.
Yeah.
The meeting took 20 minutes and it's
my whole day is now getting past the St. Pius Festival parade and
yeah. It's always some obscure thing that's like, what, people go to this?
Yeah, and there's like 50 people in the parade, but like they have like a whole blockade and everything. Blocks are shut down throughout the whole route. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, that happened to me when I was going to the Met once, and I was trying to like, keep my time as like good as possible, and all of a sudden just insane parade that you can't cross the street during a parade. So like I had to like walk several blocks out of the way to go around, and like it was ridiculous.
That happened to me. I was actually DJing in the city for last New Year's Eve. And and the place was on,
I hope you had a place to stay overnight or something.
It was on like 52nd or 53rd and like 5th. It was right there where I'm trying to walk around just because I got there real early, set up, make sure everything was cool, and I went to walk around to get something to eat, and like I couldn't, they wouldn't, and this is early, and they would not let me across. I had to go like 10 blocks up, 2 blocks over, come back around, and then I ended up not even fucking eating anywhere. By that time, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going back. Yeah, no, fuck
roasted
this.
nuts, I'm good. Yeah, I had a friend who lived in Hell's Kitchen for a little bit, and that was nice.
I love the name of that place.
Right? It sounds so sinister, and when you go there, it's just such like a technically nice area, because every area of New York City is nice, because you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to live there.
Yeah, even in the shitty areas.
And that's actually why he was living there, was because he had gotten a lawsuit, and he got tons of money because he got hit by a car.
Oh,
and so he wanted to experience living in the city for a while, so he did, and he moved into Hell's Kitchen. And so that was nice, so like if anything crazy was going on in the city, I could like just crash there and not have to worry about trying to like navigate through the entire city, get home, and like, because it's convenient living this close to the city, but at the same time it's like, all right, I gotta make it home, not on the drunk train. I gotta make sure that, like, I'm awake when I get to my stop, so I don't miss it. And
what sucks about the drunk train, it's like 4:25, 4:35. It's always different, but it's like just after 4. Most places close at 4, so if you stay to the end, you're not gonna get that train. And the next one is 6 or 6:30. Like, it's like, wow, I have to kill 2 hours here, and you always make it. Like, if it says 4:30 train, you always get there at 4:32.
Yeah.
You always just miss it. So now I got to be there at fucking 6:28 to the next one or something like that. That's so annoying.
Recently, I went into the city to do like a little drinking and bar hopping or whatever. And which, if you ever go bar hopping in the city, go with a plan, because we went with no plan, thinking there's bars everywhere, but the bars everywhere are like really, really expensive.
But you know what? If you do some real digging, I guess you'll find some more like dive type of bars, but city prices are still city prices.
Yeah.
Some of the places, if you're just going to, I guess, like the spots everybody knows about, then it's probably a little more expensive, but I don't know, you're just not going to save a whole bunch going to the hole in the wall either. You know?
But don't get off at Penn Station and think you could go a couple blocks and start bar hopping. Yeah. And so
but if you don't have a plan, it is good though, because there are a lot of places right there. You go into Midtown, it's awesome. Like, there'd be like 8 places in like a block radius.
Oh yeah,
and
a beer is still $10.
But that's the problem.
But and what the hell was the point of the start?
No clue.
So we ended up taking a drunk train back at like 2, and it was full of drunk people, and there was like, we managed to get a seat, but we're watching all these people that are getting up, and I guess all the bathrooms were like horrendous. And it was to the point where we were perfectly in eye shot of the bathroom, and people just kept going over to the bathroom, opening the door, looking inside and just going, no, and just closing it.
I've seen that a bunch of times.
And there was this woman in like a really nice dress. I think they came from like a wedding or something. And she had drank so much she was throwing up. And so she kept having to go into that bathroom. And her, boyfriend or husband or whatever keeps going with her. And he keeps having this face like, I can't believe, like, I'm so happy I love this woman because this is like disgusting. Like, and it got to the point where, usually you sit on the train and you're just completely quiet, talking to whoever you're with or whatever, but, like, it was the point all the people in that area were talking to each other, like, I can't even imagine what's in there, and I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to find out.
I feel like it would be beneficial to an establishment to have someone who's just there the whole night making sure that shit is clean. Yeah. Like, every little thing, like, not once an hour checking on it, because that's way too much time, like, forget it. Like, just have somebody there the whole time, and clean it. I feel like if you did, that would be a selling point. Like, the word would get out, be like, yeah, we go here because the bathroom's always immaculate. That would be what you would be known for, and you would get so many more people coming, because it's like, hey, listen, if you get too wasted, it's cool. Their bathroom is clean as fuck. You could go right down onto your knees and hug the shit out of that toilet. You're gonna be great. It's
Pass
okay.
out on the floor. You'll be
as soon as you get done, someone's gonna clean it up. The next person can go do the same thing. It's gonna be all right. But, like, yeah, the bathrooms are disgusting. The floor is always wet as fuck. There's, like, wet paper towels all over the place. Empty glasses. I remember I went into the bathroom once, and there was an empty bottle of Jack. Like, someone brought in a bottle of Jack. Obviously, he was making his drinks in the bathroom, and then just said, fuck it, left the bottle there. And
making
I was like,
his drinks. So someone
who didn't want to pay $10 a beer was going into the bathroom with their own little, like, it wasn't even a fifth. Like, it was the liter bottle. I don't even know how he got that shit in there. And I don't know, I guess he's just ordering Cokes and going and... Which are still, you know what, it's crazy too. For a bottle of water, they'll charge you $8 to $12 for a bottle of water in a lot of places. And then, I guess they try to pass it off, like some of them would be Voss, so it'll be like, oh, we can justify $8. But they still give you the plastic bottle.
Yeah.
If I'm paying $8 for a bottle of water, you better give me that glass bottle. But then it's like, I don't know, I can't even say it's a hazard because they give beer bottles out.
Well, but
some places don't, but a lot of places do.
If you go to like shows and stuff, they have like those plastic beer bottles. They don't even give you the cap because you can throw the cap.
Yankee Stadiums like that.
It's so crazy, like
sporting events.
The fact that like they have to like prohibit what you're allowed to have because people suck
there's one
much.
Idiot every other season that throws a beer cap onto the field or something.
Because Axl Rose sued Jones Beach for getting pelted with bottles.
I just saw something today. I guess Rod Stewart's getting sued. I guess he kicked a soccer ball I don't know if it was at a performance, but it hit somebody in the stands. Like, hit him in the face. And I'm like, yo, Rod Stewart's 78 years old. How hard did he kick this fucking soccer ball? Like, I saw him. It was funny that it was Rod Stewart because I actually saw him on, I don't know if it was like, Kelly and Michael or something in the morning or some show where he was on. And that dude is small as fuck and very frail looking.
He's, a tiny little old man.
Yeah. It's like, there's no way. Like, I'm surprised he didn't break his leg kicking the ball. And, like, the ball just didn't go anywhere. Like, when they show, like, Mr. Burns doing stuff in The Simpsons where, like, he tries to push the door open and he moves back. That's what I was thinking of with Rod Stewart. I'm surprised that didn't happen.
I think at Rod Stewart shows, they, the joke's dead now. I wrote his name and the joke's not even going to work.
Timing is a big thing. Yeah. Like, I am real big on that. Sometimes if we're chilling or whatever and I make a comment and it's funny and two people laugh and somebody didn't hear it and they ask me, oh, what'd you just say? I'm like, I can't tell you now.
Don't worry. Over. It was funny.
It was right. It was for that part right there. It was key for you to have heard it in the moment I said it. Afterwards, it's going to be so out of context. It's going to be borderline, like, inappropriate.
You need to re-explain the context now.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, you missed out. Can't do it again. Even if it's not a joke and someone asks me to repeat myself more than twice, I'm like, you know what? I'm not telling you.
Yeah,
whatever.
You know what? We don't have that important.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about this.
For that important, you would have died already. So.
Exactly. Like, let's just go on to something else.
What'd you say? Brattlebake? No, rattlesnake.
As you're running away with it stuck to your ankle. You know what? Rattlesnakes scare the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, that's scary. My friend actually almost stepped on a rattlesnake in Arizona.
Oh,
And,
one of my friends lives in Arizona too.
Yeah, and that was like the reason why when I went to Arizona that I didn't want to go on like, you know, he was like, "Oh, you just want to go for like a hike out to the desert?" One, there's so many people with guns out there that just go out into the desert to shoot them. But two, there's like scorpions, rattlesnakes. There's so many poisonous things.
Way too many animals that can kill you very easily.
Yeah.
And that are very good at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's different. Like, I mean, there's camo and everything, but you might be able to spot a lion and be like, "Ooh, I should get away from this lion." But a snake or scorpion, they're like under a leaf. And you have no
And
fucking
you know
clue.
what? That's another thing they have out in Arizona is mountain lions.
And those are actually the most efficient killers out of the cats.
Yeah.
Like, their like kill percentage is like 86% or something. Like, they're very efficient hunters.
Yeah, they're like, and they're super powerful. Like I'm pretty sure their leg strength, they would be able to jump like 12 feet upwards. So imagine that going down at you, you know? Like, that thing's going to hit terminal
all of those
velocity
things,
so
like,
fast.
when you think about it, that they kill, like, animals and other things that weigh a lot, and they do it with their face.
Yeah.
Like, they are killing shit with their face, and then they're dragging it up trees with their face. Like, a deer weighs 200 pounds. Like, a small deer is 160 pounds, maybe 180 pounds. But, like, in the 200-pound range, and they just drag it up a tree, no problem, with their fucking face.
Yeah.
Like, that is nuts.
Every once in a while, I look at small cats and I think about how they used to be big cats, and they're probably still just as proportionately brutal. So I wonder what a small cat could carry. Like, do you think it could carry like a goose?
I don't know. I know. When I lived in Ohio, I lived behind a fucking farm. Like, there was fucking barns all over, so there's mad barn cats. Like, it was a little off the property. It's not like it was every time we went into the house we had to kick 50 cats away, but they were all, you know, well out of the way. But there was a lot of fucking cats there, and they would definitely kill rabbits and shit. And they would drag those around.
Man, I hate outdoor cats.
And certain birds and everything. I mean,
that's why we have a dwindling songbird population on Long Island, is because of outdoor cats. And how people think that you can just drop an outdoor cat at the beach and it'll be okay. Because it's like a big litter box.
People think that?
Yeah.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, go to Long Beach one day and look at all the stray cats, like, everywhere.
Wow, I just feel like if I was going to let a cat out, I would just let it the fuck out. I'd be like, well, here's the backyard, find your way. Maybe I'll go down to the end of the block or something, but I'm going to take it to the beach because I think it's going to be better off at the beach. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's not logical.
Yeah.
Huge litter box.
And
yeah, but it's not like, it's not going to go fishing, that's for sure. Like, what's it going to eat at the fucking beach?
And in all reality,
Seagulls?
You're probably putting it in a compromised situation, because if it's trying to survive at the beach, it doesn't really have many places for,
There's
like,
no shade.
cover.
There's no, exactly.
Yeah, so, like, I know that I constantly, because my mother is an exterior designer. So my backyard is actually a natural habitat.
That's fucking awesome.
It's awesome, but we get tons of birds, and my neighbor has tons of outdoor cats. And so I pretty much had to
It's like Clash of Clans.
Yeah. So, like, I've been, like, scoping out spots that it can, like, hide, and because I have so many plants back there, it has so many spots to hide. And,
The birds or the cats?
The cats. And so the birds, like, they... Naturally, in, New York, birds don't have predators, so, like, now they're getting weeded out by...
Like, pigeons are all over the fucking place.
Yeah. And now they're getting weeded out by cats. And so, it was... For a while, it was, like, every day I'd find, like, a dead bird in my backyard, because, like, it was just... And the thing is, it's probably eating them, too, so how many dead birds is it making that I'm not finding, you know?
Exactly.
I hate outdoor cats.
When I was in Ohio, like, sometimes, I guess we had mice in the basement. Never saw them in the house, but in the basement, I guess there'd be a few, because every now and then the cat that we did have would get a mouse and bring it up to the basement steps there. And be like, "Hey, look what I got you." And I'm like, "Thanks. I mean, if we're cleaning that up, I guess, but what the fuck am I gonna do with it, you know?" And it's so funny because they do I don't like cats, and I like kittens because they're cute as fuck. I don't like cats because I guess it's for the same reason why I don't like snakes. Like, you can't read them. There's no telling what they're thinking. And I've seen cats be perfectly cool, and then all of a sudden just flip the fuck out.
Yeah.
And then you never know when that's coming, and it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. And stray cats or any sort of outdoor cats are like they carry so much disease.
Yeah.
They have parasite toxoplasmosis that basically like if a mouse were to get it, it would make that mouse less cautious of cats, and it would like instead of running like cleanly against the wall, it would just run out through the middle of the room. And like its life cycle is basically based on the fact that like it will get eaten and passed on to something else. And like it's crazy. Like people are actually mentally affected by this like thing that cats have, and they think that's why cat people exist, is because they have this parasite in
They're
them
all
that's
sick
making
people.
making them want this parasite basically.
That could be. That could be. There are like when those type of life forms, like parasites and stuff like that, are really weird. Like there's one, I have no idea what the fuck it's called, but it like gets into like an ant or something, and it literally like grows in the ant. It's like zombies the ant, and it goes back to the hive, and then like they all got it, and then like it all
and then
kills
it makes
the shit out
and
of
then
them.
it makes their butt turn bright red, and then they stand on the tip of branches.
I was gonna say they go up trees,
Yeah, and then they get eaten by birds to continue their life. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
the
crazy.
way all that works, like this, basically the circle of life is really, really nutty.
And it's funny because it seems so like intentional, but it's really just the people who managed to do that were the people who managed to survive.
Exactly, and that's what they did to get to that point. It's like, well, if I don't do this, we're gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
You know, and it was even down to like your gut bacteria. You know what's going on in there? It's like millions of different fucking bacteria, billions of different bacteria in there, and it's crazy because if it's not there, you would die.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If that bacteria wasn't in your gut, you're dead. You know, your food's not getting broken down, and there's no life for you. It's the same shit that eventually breaks you down when you die.
Yeah.
Too. It's fucking.
And it's crazy that we've known this for what, like 60 years, you know? And then like that guy Semmelweis who discovered like bacteria could be bad was like what, like less than 200 years ago? Like we know so little about this stuff, and then like we keep learning more, like, oh hey, that's evidently a problem. Like like, you know, my girlfriend has celiac disease, which means she can't eat gluten. And there were probably people for like hundreds of years that were just like, yeah, I always got heartburn. And like they just didn't know what it was.
Exactly.
And meanwhile they just ate pasta every day thinking like, oh yeah, this won't cause heartburn. And then
or they think it's like the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
But it's actually the pasta. It's actually all that.
Yeah.
That's a thing too when you're talking about like just healthy foods and the GMO thing. Like, yeah, it's the same thing with like gluten-free stuff. Like people sometimes get gluten-free stuff thinking it's healthy, but it's like you can make gluten-free junk food just as easily.
Yeah.
You know, like a soda's gluten-free. That's not fucking good for you. You shouldn't be drinking Coke every day, you know, or snorting it. So like there's a lot of things that you really have to dissect like very intently what you're eating and stuff, and like what's on labels and what they mean, because there's I forgot the exact number, but there's like probably 80 different ways to label MSG on packaging.
But that MSG, they're doing more research on. They're saying that's not actually bad for you. Well, it just makes stuff taste good.
Yeah, but there are people that do have it. I mean,
well,
again,
yeah, there are people who have like allergies.
Yeah, there's no one clean cut, you know, way to eat or something for everybody, you know? So for those people, it's harder for them to determine what the fuck they're eating because there's so many different ways to say it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things is like, you know...
Same thing with sugar. You know?
Yeah. But like, yeah, we go anywhere and we try to like, you know, ask if they have gluten-free stuff and they're like, I'm not even sure what gluten is.
Yeah.
And then like, it's funny because you think of gluten as just wheat, and actually if you Google sometimes gluten-free stuff, it'll also search the word wheat, but it falls under like barley is also it. Like so many little things have gluten in it, and it's like, but yeah, a big thing is like what makes treats so delicious is usually gluten. It makes it so like soft and spongy. So when they make those gluten-free things, people, although, you know, if they're doing, what's the one, keto or whatever?
Quinoa.
No. You're doing like the diet keto. I think it is.
Like keto, Keto.
Like your body goes into ketosis.
Ketones. Yeah.
Like
that's like almost like a no carb fucking diet.
Yeah, and so people think that they're gonna lose weight doing that and eating, you know, gluten-free blah blah blah, and meanwhile, like in order to make it actually taste good, making it with corn or rice or whatever, they had to then load it with like lard in order to make it actually soft for a long period of time, and like.
And then they still might be using a whole bunch of different sugars and stuff to make it taste good or whatever. Like, yeah, it can be a daunting task to do that. But once you do kind of look into it a little, it definitely becomes easier. Like, my start on it was just couple different documentaries, like, you know, Food Matters, Forks Over Knives, Hungry for Change was a good one. And there's a few other. Frankensteer, Farmageddon. Yeah, that was, some of the names are a little weird.
I feel like some of these they came up with the names for.
They're like the cheesy horror movies, like those like B horror movies. Frankensteer.
It's almost like the level of like when they make the porn parodies and like they have to like come up with something like Titanic, like they need to.
Yeah, right. But it was like, but the thing about them is like, for the most part, they're all unrelated. You know, that's not like the same people that made them. I think Food Matters and maybe Hungry for Change were the same people, but other than that, it's a lot of different people doing their own research and putting their own information together, and they all come to very similar conclusions.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're looking at it from, you know, the angle of, again, Frankensteer is more towards meat, Farmageddon was more towards dairy, Forks Over Knives is the other way, goes more vegetables and stuff. But
Are these dietary things, or like are they more just like exposés? Or?
A little of both. There were a few that were more dietary. Some were more like, hey, you know, sugar's fucking bad for you if you eat a bunch of it, and you don't know that it's in fucking everything. You know, what the actual does, like, what it's doing to your brain, what receptors it's working on and stuff, why you want it more, why, like, you know, a Diet Coke during lunch, like, what effect that's going to have with what you're eating and all this other crap. And then some were like, hey, if you're eating this red meat, this is what's happening to it before it gets to your plate. You know?
Yeah.
So they're all different, but they all come to very similar conclusions, you know?
I think one of the things that does get overblown is sugars. I actually have a person that I'm friends with on Facebook, and she's constantly going on about how sugar is like the worst thing in the world and how it makes kids hyper and stuff like that. And it's like, first of all, kids are hyper. They're small. They have energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Know? But, you know, sugar is one of those things that, like, the amount of sugar that we consume in like an average day is usually pretty horrible because a lot of people drink like soda. But like, I don't know, sugar definitely is a nutrient that people need to a certain extent. And, you know, I think with any sort of dietary thing, a lot of times they don't consider that there's billions of different types of people. So some people don't lose any weight cutting carbs out because their body requires carbs. Some people's bodies end up doing severe damage to themselves because they are basically switching the way their body works. There's been like this huge movement lately for people to, and well, especially on Long Island, because it seems like the bodybuilding community is getting really big here, but to eat more protein than you do anything else.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because protein is actually toxic to your body without fat.
Exactly.
So if you eat solely lean protein, eventually you're going to like start eating away the fat in your brain. And yeah, you could do serious damage to your body like by doing that.
There's what's also getting big now too is more the research and evidence coming out for healthy fats. That's what you need, like different saturated fats and stuff.
Like avocados.
Avocados. I mean, coconut oil.
Which coconut oil, I would like to add, is wonderful for sex. Just want to put that out there.
Like a lubricant.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It's a game changer. In my opinion.
So, I mean, for the females, like, does it change? Like, is it okay to just go ass to mouth after that? Because like, does it get that taste? Does it affect that?
No.
Or would you still avoid that? Like, for her sake, you probably don't give a shit. But
I'm just saying. It does actually add a little bit of flavor, but I think part of it is that you smell coconut, so like your brain is kind of...
all right, that is a game changer now.
Yeah. But,
awesome.
You know, test small areas, make sure you don't have allergies or anything.
I mean, I eat that shit all the time.
Well,
I'm talking about coconut oil. So, just to be clear. But yeah, all that, like, you have to balance your proteins with the easiest thing, whatever dark green vegetable there you can get, whether it's green beans, kale, spinach, broccoli. Like, the proportion should be, I think it's like more so like 80-20. Like, 80% of your plate should be this type of vegetable, and the protein should really be like maybe the size of your palm or so, or your fist. And also, it depends on where that protein came from. You know, there's just a difference between the meat you're gonna buy, let's say at ShopRite or fucking Walmart, and a grass-fed steak that was from wherever. New Zealand is pretty big on that if you're getting it imported, but there's a lot of local places you can find it too. There's places upstate New York, so if you're looking for that local stuff, Whole Foods says where it comes from and everything. But then there's like distinctions in that, because like just because it was grass-fed, if they corn finish it, then it changes the fats in it, and it's not as healthy for you as being grass-fed and grass-finished. So it's like, it's all those like tricky wordings of it. And if you get organic meat, it means nothing at all.
Yeah.
All it means is that pretty much organic just really has to do with pesticides. So if you got like an organic New York strip steak, that just means like the corn and grain and stuff that they fed the cow wasn't sprayed with pesticides. Well, it was sprayed with okayed pesticides or whatever.
Well, another point of clarity on that is that there's no oversight into putting those labels on anything.
Exactly.
So I could just be like, yeah, this is my organic grass-fed beef, and it's,
Which is weird, because we do have an FDA. That's like, that's your only job.
Yeah.
There's nobody doing that. Why does your organization exist? Who's getting paid to do what? Like, you're not doing anything, you know? And a lot of those, and you have people that are the head of that used to work for Monsanto, and it's crazy with all those connections. And then you're like, oh, well, this is why nothing gets done.
Yeah, and did you hear about the thing recently with, I think it was Crest toothpaste? They put like those cleansing plastic beads in there, and then those were getting embedded in people's gums, and then you spit it into the water system, so now there's just plastic beads being distributed in the water. And the same thing with body washes, have tons of those plastic
facial
massaging
scrubs,
beads and stuff, and it's like, do they not realize that like this is ending up somewhere, or like, and then how do they get to the...
Were those the ones that, I don't know if it was those beads or was some other type of little plastic. Maybe I could have this confused with something else, but they find it in like the stomachs of fishes and birds and everything that are dying, and like it's because their stomach is full with plastic pellets and these other little plastic things, because they don't know it's not fucking food.
Yeah, and, well, you'd be surprised you might not be surprised how much plastic they find in just wild birds who see trash floating on the water, swoop down and eat it, because that's how they've been trained over the years. Is they see something reflecting, they swoop down as quickly as they can without looking to snatch that up.
And before humans, it was 99% of the time it was probably fucking food.
Yeah,
like it was probably something they could eat.
Yeah, and the thing was, the ones that naturally would look twice at it and then swoop were the ones that didn't end up eating and ended up dying. So now they've adapted to that, but now it's becoming a problem for them.
Yeah, it's all again. It's just that it's the way that everything's connected, and the disconnect that we have because of like the way that we live now and everything, with all these amenities and just day-to-day luxuries and stuff that you don't think twice about.
Yeah.
And that's at some point it is. You're going to see it catching up, and I guess you already do with the talk, with the climate change talk, and different animals that go extinct and this and that because of us. Animals are going to go extinct over time. That's just going to happen. But when you're the fucking reason for it, you're like, man, maybe you should change the way you're having your impact on the environment.
Yeah. Like, birds that live by highways have died off to a certain extent. The ones that had long wings died off. Now the offspring that only have the shorter wings, which means that they could take off at a smaller, heartbeats of a notice, are the ones that are surviving. And so we're affecting that population in tiny ways. And that's actually, if someone says evolution doesn't exist, you can actually use that as an example of evolution, because, if someone says evolution doesn't exist, they're already fucking lost.
So I try to be very open, and I'll hear you out, but it's hard to talk to those people.
Yeah.
It really is.
And we have two mutual friends who both don't believe in evolution, and it was mind-blowing.
You can tell me off air, because it's not coming to my head right now.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. But yeah, it's mind-blowing to me that, like, I always assumed that was like some sort of weird backward middle America thing, but like recently I've been seeing all these like it seems to be getting posted off of this Facebook that's like Jesus is King or something like that, which I feel bad for Christians that believe in evolution, because you're totally just like dragging your religion through the mud when other people do that.
The one aspect of it that I can like get on board with in believing is like, you can believe in God and that He created everything, but why can't you believe the fact that He created it so it has this way to survive?
Yeah.
You know, that it would evolve. Like, that, they can go hand in hand if you want to believe both of them. Like, you can't be like, well, no, I believe in, you know, creationism, whatever, and He made everything the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's so much evidence that just doesn't support that. You know, that over the years, it's like, no, this is kind of the way we got to where we are now, and different animals got to where they are.
And these people, instead of assuming that, you know, what they're reading is a parable that's representative of something, they're believing that this is verbatim what happened. And so in turn, you know, they can, if you believe something strong enough, you can convince yourself
of anything.
Yeah, so that's why they say, like, oh, well, dinosaur fossils were put there to test my faith.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, come on, really?
You know?
No, he wasn't planning it that far ahead.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? I guess 6,000 years from now, like, they're going to debate this, and it's just to see who really believes in me. Like, this is going to be what determines who gets in.
Yeah.
And no, I can't buy that. I'm sorry.
And that's just one of those things that you can just continue, like, getting, like, a confirmation bias and telling yourself you're right.
It's weird, like you can believe or see how, you know, a friend of yours, like, you know, quote unquote regular person, could kind of believe that. Be like, oh, that's, you know, they got you. Okay, cool. But when you see it, like that one debate that was with Bill Nye and the other dude, sucks, I forgot his name. But he's like head of like the Creationist Museum or whatever, and it was a big thing. Like, it was a big debate and everything. It was at like a theater or whatever, so it was thousands of people there.
That was when
they televised it, but it was on YouTube and everything. And it's like, wow, you're not just some random dude that's believing it. You know, like, you're in a prominent position and really pushing hard for it.
Yeah.
When can't you hear what you're saying and your arguments that, oh my God, it's mind blowing. You have no words for it. You know, it's just like, that's really. You're convinced yourself of that? Like, that's what you believe? Like,
and unfortunately for Bill Nye, I believe that had the opposite effect that he wanted to.
It kind of did.
Actually, more people who believed slightly in creationism who got swayed to full creationist after that. So it's really unfortunate that, like...
You know what? Because for as smart as the guy is, it's the stuff like that it really fries your brain. It's like... It's like, you can't. How do you argue with someone? It's like a psychopath doesn't know he's a psychopath. So how do you argue with someone who's stupid, who doesn't know they're stupid?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who's just coming up with a completely ridiculous idea. Like, because people like him use logic. So when you're arguing with someone who doesn't use logic, it's like your brain short circuits.
Yeah.
Like, it smokes a little, and you're like, I don't even know what to say because this just doesn't make logical sense. So how do I put it in a way where other people are gonna understand it, or that it can combat this, because I can't use logic. I can't use what I should be using to fight this, you know? And that's why at the end of it, I do remember when he was just pleading. He was like, please take science classes. Don't cut them from school. Like, we need the science community to be strong. Please, like, whatever you can to support it. Like, he was practically begging. Like, it was almost like, you know what, cut music from school, I don't give a shit, but please have science in it. Like, don't replace it with this, or like take this stuff out because, you know, people like the support creationism, like, want that taught. Like, it's not science. You can't teach that in school, you know? Like, go to Catholic school or whatever, biblical school, whatever, if you want to go down that path, you know? It was like, it was a little heart-wrenching and sad, because you could just tell he's defeated. He was like, I don't know what else to fucking tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, and at this point, it's just like, it's gotta be so depressing for someone whose job is, like, awareness, you know? And, like, just people refuse to be aware. It's, like, really, that's really scary when you think about it.
Like I said with that Committee of Technology and Science or whatever, one of the congressman's arguments was like, well, it's hard for me to really take what the scientists say when, you know, they have to push climate change because otherwise they're not going to get published in these journals. How they like they're doing it so they can make money to write articles for papers and stuff like that. And I was like, first of all, there's a point to that, because we, like I said, we just use that for them. Well, they get paid from big oil, so of course they're going to argue against it. So that argument just goes against them as well. But there isn't a big conglomerate that pays them. You know, they're not fucking popping bottles because they're writing articles that are supporting climate change. You know what I'm saying?
I'm getting so much money from the solar people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with science, is either you have to get funding from an outside source, so that's where a lot of bad science happens, and a lot of, like, bad causation happens. But if you're not getting it from an outside source, you're getting it from either the academic establishment that you work for or whatever, and they all have to agree that what you're saying seems valid and that they can give you money to continue researching that. So, like, saying that, oh, this thing researched by this university, oh, it's wrong, that's, like, basically discrediting all the people affiliated with that university, and then all the people that are affiliated with it are technically the people who taught them, and, like,
Yep.
you know, it's...
Which is real crazy, too, because you would think if anybody is going to be open to new ideas or learning something new or having it looked at in a different way that could, you know, basically change everything that came before it, you would think those people would be more open to it, because that's what they that's what they should be. They'd be like, oh, so, but no, they look at it more like, I guess it's that human nature thing. It's like, well, I can't be wrong for the last 40 years of my life.
Yeah.
My whole life is built on everything going this way. You know, that's why, was it Darwin that got, like, fucking beheaded or something for some of what he was talking about?
Oh, no,
It was
I
it
want
was
to
one
say
of the,
it was Magellan, or...
not the one I was thinking of, but I'm sure it probably could have happened to him too. I'm sure the person I'm thinking of is not the only one that has happened to in history. You know, for, like, teaching that, oh, the Earth is not the center of the universe. You know.
Yeah,
like,
there was someone in physics that was he was, like, shunned and then died, like, basically because of being shunned because of his beliefs. And right now, man, I want to say it's Galileo. He has his middle fingers actually on display somewhere in the direction of the Vatican.
That is great.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. But yeah, it's so it's like it's happened before, and it's, again, I wish that I, like, was a history major, because it's really, as history repeats itself and you see it just happening again and again. It's just different details.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, everything has come before is happening again, and just in different variations, you know? And it would have been awesome to, I guess, study all that for my whole life, so you could just point them out like this and just rattle off. Like, no, you're an idiot for doing this, because, hey, remember when it happened over here in fucking, I don't know, the 1200s or some shit? Like, yeah, maybe we should learn from that.
But then you'd be surprised how much that stuff was just completely erased, you know? And, like, all these ideas that are just completely gone because of, I mean, going back to the Catholic Church.
Oh.
I mean, that's the reason why, if you look at old classical statues, a lot of them don't have penises, because they were all, like, removed.
I don't know, I feel like all the ones I've seen do have penises. like, there's always penises on statues.
Well, a lot of the classical statues that you see are recreations, because
Right.
a lot of stuff didn't survive from the Greek and Roman times. So throughout the Renaissance, that's what the Renaissance was people looking at classical art and recreating it. And I think it was Pope Pius literally went around with a cane knocking off penises. And so one of the best examples that you can see of Roman art was the stuff that was covered in like lava in Pompeii, because that was basically kept a secret until, like, recent times. So it was, like, crazy for us to discover, like, wow, Romans had a lot of brothels. And those brothels had pretty nice commissioned nude art on the walls, and, like, you know.
It was like a fossil record of the time.
Yeah, so it's, like, it's crazy to see how often things seem a certain way, because, you know, it sounds so, like, oversaid, but, like, you know, history is written by the people who
did it. And exactly, you're gonna have that, again, the human nature influence of the way that they reported it. Yeah, same thing, like, obviously there wasn't a Fox and MSNBC back then, but there were people who thought a certain way, and they wrote this stuff down in there with their tint to it, you know? And it definitely happened back then as well.
Yeah.
There was actually, it wasn't Iraq, but, like, had, like, one of, like, the world's, like, best libraries ever or some shit, and I think it was one, I'm probably gonna butcher this, I want to say when, like, Genghis Khan, like, just wiped through, got to that area or some shit, they, like, fucking just destroyed everything and burned everything, and it said that, like, that part of the world still hasn't recovered from that happening in, like, fucking 1200s or some shit like that, or 1400s or something.
I mean, you have to think there was a period of time known as the Dark Ages that people were more advanced before then, and they would actually look at things and be like, what the fuck is this? Like, it would almost be as if, like, you know, all of a sudden we switched to the 1800s, but we still had all these like iPods and stuff like that. And we're like, what is this?
It'd be like being like a time traveler,
Yeah.
going back with your phone and then being like, but it would be you. It was like, wow, what are you handing me right now? What do I do with this?
Yeah, it's like it's so wild to think of, but it's so true.
There was something else I was going to say after that. I totally just blanked out on what it was.
I mean, if you even think about in recent history, Iran was a very progressive country and had a lot of education for women who were, dressed in formal clothing, and, that world has changed. And now they teach with blackboards with holes in them, and, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts how, like, it can just change like that, depending on who happens to be running the country at the time, or just little things really. It's almost like the butterfly effect, like a real little shift sends the path off this way where, like, the first 10 years no one notices, but 150 years later you're like fucking off the deep end. Or
even, like sometimes those things happen immediately, like the guy who invented the system for amplifying your voice early on, he minimized it, and one of the first people to use it to their advantage was actually Hitler. They think that Hitler, with his very silly kind of mousy voice, wouldn't have gotten anywhere because he wouldn't have carried. You actually had to start on a street corner at that time, and he wouldn't have gotten anyone to follow him because no one would have even heard him or cared because he had such a silly voice. And the fact that he had this loudspeaker system to speak over, they think, like, completely changed everything. And then that loudspeaker got even worse when it got introduced into concentration camps and it was demanding people to do things.
It's the same thing with when eventually just the way, like, presidents or people running for president give their speeches and how it gets dissected and everything. Like, if you can't really talk and articulate what you want to say and everything, was it one of the Nixon debates or whatever? Or was it a Kennedy one where, like, the other dude was, like, sweating bullets and shit? And since they televised, it was one of the first ones that got televised. Like, everybody who was, like, listening to it thought, the one person won. Everybody watched it, thought the other person had won. I don't remember exactly what
I'm trying to remember who that was. I want to say that was...
Let's try to fact check that real quick. I don't even know what I would Google for that.
First televised presidential debate.
I don't know if it was the first one, though. Maybe.
I think it was, because I think that was a big part.
Yeah.
Was that, like... people were watching.
That's the first thing that comes up when I type in first televised.
First televised.
Kennedy and Nixon square off.
Was it Kennedy and Nixon?
Wow, it's September 26th? Is that today? It was today, in 1960.
That's crazy.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's weird. Because I'm reading this article and it says, on this day in 1960, and I'm like...
Oh no, today's the 25th.
Ah, man, that's pretty damn close, though.
I mean, today's the 26th. Just post this tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I should have said that in the beginning, too, what date it was, because it could be a week before this fucking thing gets up. Yeah, according to the Museum of Broadcast History, radio listeners considered Nixon's answers to questions to be more substantive and gave Nixon the advantage over Kennedy after the first debate. By contrast, television viewers gave Kennedy the edge, as their impressions were based on how the candidate looked as much as what he said.
Let's be honest, Kennedy is a hunk. So,
well, yeah.
I mean, he had that advantage off the bat.
Without a doubt.
But he's got that filthy Boston accent, so if it had just been over audio, everybody would just been like, please, sir, shut up.
But again, like that is so clear on, like, just the context of the way people get the information, because they got the same exact thing, basically. It's just the way that it was, I don't want to say fed to them, but the way that they consumed it,
Yeah, I mean, have you seen that thing recently about how they portray white people versus black people in the media?
Yeah.
And how, like, basically, like, the same thing would happen to two people of different races, and the way that it's, like, the way the headlines are completely different, and where they place fault, and where they, like, frame the situation. It's
and the words that they use, like, in the headline and stuff, they'll use something that, like, sometimes it'd be, Oklahoma teen, yada, 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 but if it's a black dude, it's like, black man, even though he's like a 16-year-old or whatever.
I actually heard recently that the year with the lowest number of school shootings was the same year as, can you guess it?
Columbine.
Columbine. And that's because most school shootings happen in urban areas between gangs, things like that. And, you know, crossfire from gang fights, things like that. And who cares about that? Who cares about if a black kid gets
Well, I mean,
killed?
look right now in Chicago. You know?
See, it's so clear because I don't even know what's going on in Chicago.
Holy shit. Like, cause I gotta get, like, actual numbers. But it's fucking ridiculous, yo. Like, one, I think, is, like, the south side of Chicago, whatever. It's, like, people are dying, like more than one a day. I don't know what the average is, but it's a fucking lot. And, yeah, there's, like, nothing being said about it at all. But, like, it's a real big thing. But you have the Ferguson thing that sets off, you know, what it has set off. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just lay that shit down. You're gonna hear some clicking, whatever. It took so long to try to get this to sound right that I'll live with the clicks. What I even Google this? Chicago murders statistics, I guess.
Yeah, and it's crazy just how much stuff happens, like that big march over climate change that happened like a couple days ago that no one talked about until like after it happened.
You know what? I actually did see some of it as it was happening.
Yeah.
On, like, I guess Channel 7, and I did very take aware of how they were reporting it, and it was nothing egregious. You know, it was nothing like, oh, why are they saying that, or why are they doing it that way. They were, again, it was the one that I saw. It was pretty fair, and they were saying why they were there. You know, that is rather peaceful demonstration, this and that, and that they're gonna go to Wall Street, and they weren't that bad about it. And I was pretty surprised, to be honest. I think maybe though, because there were some celebrities there.
Yeah.
Both the guys that played the Hulk were there.
I'm gonna say that it was Lou Ferrigno, and that it was Lou Ferrigno in green paint.
It wasn't. It was.
And you can't do anything to tell me otherwise. I guess it was Eric Bana and Edward Norton.
It was Edward Norton, yeah, and the other dude. I thought his name was Michael. I don't know why I thought that.
Eric Bana was the one that was in the.
I was talking about the Avengers one.
Oh, Mark Ruffalo.
Mark.
Yeah, completely. I actually forgot about that. And he does a good performance in that too.
Does.
I like Mark Ruffalo. He's a good actor. He's very good at like shape shifting, and even though he always has that like mumbling that he does.
Yo, you're not. Holy shit. This can't even be. I feel like this can't even be real. Chicago shooting victims. Last update is September 12th, 2014. Yearly totals. January 1st to September. That's not even a whole calendar year. Till right now. To September 12th. Well, not right now, but till September 12th. 1,307.
Damn.
And, like, Chicago's not a huge city. I mean, it's a big city, I guess, in regular city standards. But they only have, like...
Wait, so what's the number next to it?
I feel like it's only, like, in, like, 2 to 3 million people, yo.
What are they showing next to that, though?
Shooting victim... January 1st. It was last year's total.
Oh, wow. Last year was even higher.
Yeah, no, that's when it was... And that's the thing. That's when it was real big. That's when the story was actually getting the little bit of recognition that it did get.
That's wild. Yeah, I think the fact that...
Look at it broken down by community areas. Like, just look at how many circles this is. This is from crime.chicagotribune.com/Chicago/shootings.
That's wild. The
And
fact
this is
that
outside.
the fact that any place could have that many deaths by guns is just insane.
I don't think they're all... I think it's just shooting crime victims. I don't think they're all deaths.
Oh, but still.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Still a fucking shit ton of people. And that's the thing. And you don't fucking hear about it, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's mind-blowing the way that the news
And that's where the
chooses.
president's from. That's where he's from. Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
And
I didn't even think of that.
it's almost all black kids that are dying. You know? It's probably not 100%, but it's fucking hot. There's probably 85 or some shit.
Yeah.
I shouldn't just be arbitrarily spitting out percentages. But it's high.
It's crazy. And just the way that the media portrays black people in general is just...
We were talking about the commercials for Blackish.
Yeah.
For that show.
Yeah.
You know what happens? I accidentally watched it yesterday.
You watched the actual show?
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I was just... by the time I got home from the gym, showered, and I was sitting down to eat, it was not... Channel 7's always on at my house.
Yeah.
That's all my grandmother watches. Channel 7.
How was it? Did it seem as offensive as the commercials?
Yeah,
or?
some of it. Yep. But it kind of seemed like it was like more of like an in living color skit if they were gonna do something that was meant to be kind of offensive, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it kind of seemed like. But there were definitely parts that almost everything that was in the commercial was in that first episode too. Like the part where Lawrence Fishburne's is like, "I came here for fried chicken. What the fuck is this?" You know?
Oh my god.
There was definitely the joke about the white kid going into their refrigerator and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I just need some grape soda. My mom doesn't buy that." Like, I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, and especially to be produced by Lawrence Fishburne is like, well, I just don't understand how he signed up for that unless it's supposed to be a real like pokey. Like,
yeah, I think
I gotta say, it doesn't come off that way.
Yeah, maybe they should make it more obvious or something. But yeah, it really seems like everyone is sort of negatively lampooning being black as opposed to like. I've never been a fan of what's his name, Anthony
Anderson. Yeah,
Anthony Anderson. I almost said Anthony Daniels, which
he's
is
good
C-3PO.
in some. Yeah, he's good in some stuff. He was awesome, like Hustle and Flow and stuff. Like, but he's also been in a lot of those like just silly movies.
Yeah, and I feel like unless there's something I'm missing, like maybe the kids are really like, you know, progressive, and then they're trying to convince their dad, but it seems like they're progressive in a silly way. Like, he doesn't want to be called Andre, he wants to be called Andy.
Yeah.
So it seems more like it's like a clear, which by the way, Andre is a German name. I want to put that out there. We have a gentleman that we both mutually know named Andre, and he is an old. Oh well, yeah, okay. So two people that we know mutually named Andre are black, but there is that old German man named Andre, and it's so. All I really see, at least from the commercials, is that, you know, this one guy is basically saying, now I'm a black man who's successful, so one, I have to live in a white neighborhood.
And that's,
two,
that's what the opening, like, the opening credits things, like the intro to the show is that. It was, I'm telling you, it was really...
He's basically saying that he has to sell out his culture because now he makes money. And I think also part of it seems to be that, and maybe you'll take offense to this, that since these people have money, now they live in a Jewish neighborhood because this kid wants to get a bar mitzvah?
Yeah, that was... I didn't even see that when I saw it, but yeah, the kid wanted to be bar mitzvah. I guess white neighborhood, but I didn't think they were all Jewish. I guess a number of them might have been, because I guess he was going to actually a lot of bar mitzvahs, and he was like, yeah, I want to have a party.
Yeah, and so it's strange to me that,
I gotta cut you off, though, because what they ended up doing, too, was he had a bro mitzvah. And it was hip-hop themed party that they did. And it was, yeah. That's what I'm telling you. Like, it was like, why are they doing it this way?
So let's break this down as much as possible. The connection that they're making is that Jewish people doing this long-held tradition of becoming a man and singing songs such as Hava Nagila, which are, like, songs so far ingrained into their culture and their pastime. It's basically the same thing as having a hip-hop party, which is, like, what? Now...
40 years old?
Yeah.
45, 50 at the tops?
And that's if you're including, like, songs like hip-hop, hippie, the hip the hip-hip-hop. Like, it's so mind-blowing to me that, like, it seems like we've come so far, and then all of a sudden things like this come out. And, like, it's sad because, like, what are the big shows right now starring black people? They have Orange is the New Black, which is basically, like, black, predominantly minority women in prison. And how fun that is. And, like, almost, like...
yeah, prison's the shit.
Yeah, and it's crazy how much freedom that they have that, like, you wouldn't actually have in prison. Like, they're, like, chopping vegetables and stuff with knives and, like, you know, like... they're like such glamorizing these situations, and you know, I was really proud of actually one of my favorite shows on TV right now, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think is hysterical, and so the cast on that show is predominantly minorities. It's 2 Hispanic women or Latina women. I want to say 2 black men, a Jewish man. So
you're not sure if they're men or if they're black.
I feel like there's more. I feel like it's not just Terry Crews and Thomas from Glory, because I don't know the actual actor's name. I feel like there was someone else, but yeah. And then there's 2 Latin women, and then Andy Samberg is the main character who's Jewish. I think the only person there's so if you consider Jewish a minority, then there's only 2 people who are white on the show, and they're Italians. At least I assume Joe Lo Truglio sounds very Italian.
Sounds Italian.
And then Chelsea Peretti, I think, is Italian. But honestly, she might be Jewish.
Could be.
I could be wrong. But yeah, like, and that's one of my favorite shows, and I realized late into the show that, like, wow, this show is predominantly minorities, and with the exception of Chelsea Peretti, which she's supposed to be, like, such a ridiculous character, all the women on the show are very strong, very good figures of what, like, women can represent but never do. And, like, meanwhile then, you know, a show that's bigger than that and won Best Comedy over that is Orange is the New Black. You know? Which, I'm not sure what they're technically saying with that title, because is that, like, a play on Pink is the New Black? So, like, you know, are they basically saying, like, being in prison is stylish, or?
Yeah, that's my take on it was that, because I remember seeing, like, I think it was a Johnny Walker or one of the liquor ads where they were like, green is the new black, you know, because their color was green and stuff. I think just, yeah, it has to do with more like of a fashion thing and like being like in style. Like black is, I guess, always kind of like an in style color or whatever, a little black dress party, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so I think that's the way I took it anyway. And look at it as, you know, talking about race in that way.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, it's kind of putting race in there, but I feel like there's no positive way to represent race by having a prison show that is so glamorous. It's not like it's Oz with women. It's just like, and especially the way it's like changing.
Prison Break.
Yeah, like the way it's changing, it's just becoming kind of like a fun sitcom kind of situation that just happens to be in a prison. It's like Hogan's Heroes, but instead of it being you know, Nazis, it's like now in a prison. I don't know. To me it seems so silly.
Yeah, I gotta say I gave up on that show second season, like 1 or 2 episodes in. I was just not, yeah, it was more going that route, I guess, and I was just like, it's not really holding my interest now.
Yeah, and so did you notice that at the second season it started getting more jokey?
Yeah.
And that's because they won Best Comedy, and some people think that they felt they needed to, like...
It was weird, because I didn't really watch the first season thinking it was a comedy at all.
Kind of like shows like Breaking Bad and stuff like that. Like, there's parts that will make you laugh, but it doesn't necessarily make it a comedy.
Exactly.
That's basically something that makes it so it's not just an extremely tense show.
Yeah. You have to have those mood breakers, you know?
Yeah, that's why, like, No Country for Old Men, very dark, like, you know, tense movie, but it has parts that you'll laugh at.
Yeah, that one dude was funny as hell. He's like, you know, if I don't come back, tell my mom I love her. She died. Well, I guess I'll tell her. Like, it wasn't, he didn't say it in a way that was like a slapstick funny way, but just, it was funny.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I love the Coen brothers, is they always have these movies that'll be ostensibly like dark movies, and then they'll have these parts that are lighthearted just because you can't go through a period of time that serious.
Yeah, and, and I feel like nobody does, really. Yeah. Like, I don't know, at least I know I don't, I have a weird thing where I really think in my head I'm going through life like it is a sitcom, like it is a movie or something like that, where it's like, wow, this is happening to me right now, and if it was on a movie, this happening would be really funny. So I kind of just say it or do it sometimes, and like probably in real life you shouldn't do that, but I go with the mantra of like, well, it's okay because it was funny.
Yeah, and
obviously that has its limits, but...
Yeah, and those are the kind of things that, like, usually it takes for, like, you know, hindsight to be like, you know what, in retrospect, you know, so this is a true story from my life. In 3rd grade, because it's been cool ever since that period of time to wear baggy pants, I took a pair of my sister's pants, which she is heavier than me, and at the time also she was a girl, so she's older than me.
How old was she?
She would be in, I would be in 3rd grade, so she'd be in 4th grade. Okay. Or maybe I was in 4th grade and she was in 5th. But girls mature quicker and grow quicker, so these pants were gigantic on me. But I wanted to be cool with these baggy pants that I was pretty much picking up the whole day. And then at one point I was talking to this girl that I had a crush on, and my pants just straight up fell down. And at the time, it was literally the most embarrassing thing that could possibly have ever happened to a person at that situation. But now it's like one of the funniest things from my life. Like, you literally just said, like, you look back at things as if they're a sitcom, and the first thing that popped into my head was like, that one time my pants fell down in public in front of the girl I had a crush on.
And there's also the thing, too, I guess maybe you realize it more as you get a little older, too, and look back on things, like, it could be embarrassing at the time or while it's happening, but you do know, like, yeah, next month this is going to be pretty funny.
Yeah.
You know? And I think if you have that mindset, like, know about that, then when stuff actually happens at the time, you don't freak out about it as much.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I've been through a bunch of shit. This really, my pants falling down. It's not even that bad. You know, whatever. Like, but it does take that you have to live through a certain amount of stuff for that to build up, and then you got to take it that way. Some people go through a whole bunch of bullshit and just keep getting real down about it.
Yeah.
And be like, it's the worst thing, or like
that
they're
they're
over
just
dramatic
doomed.
or whatever it is, and yeah, they turn mountains out of fucking anthills or whatever that
I think it's
saying
moles,
is.
but yeah.
I think it's mole too.
I think just because of the
all the
alliteration.
M's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, well, anthills are small. We're gonna go with that one.
But you know what? That's an even more dramatic person, I guess.
Yeah, right. Really dissecting that as it's happening. But yeah, I think we covered a shit ton of stuff, man.
Yeah, I think you can now base your entire life off of this hour and 45 minutes of, wow, we've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes.
I mean, it was pretty linear. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, subject-wise, it jumped around, which is gonna happen, but it wasn't like you said something, I said something, silence for 30 seconds. Okay.
We both decide to drink water at the same time. Like,
yeah. So there's the first episode then of OnTrack. Is this are you down to keep doing these? Like,
yeah,
you gonna
definitely.
come for all of them when we have guests? You'll be here too and everything.
Definitely, I can definitely come back.
Awesome. That's what's up. Because this is way better than me talking to myself. Like,
which, by the way, I want to create a disclaimer. You said talking to yourself, it means that you're insane. And I thought that line was great because you said, like, you were one step away from insanity. And in all reality, I'm going to say that I talk to myself, I'd say 90% of the time. And that's where I get some of my best ideas, is talking to myself.
And I think I said that afterwards. I was like, you know what? I kind of talk to myself a lot. Maybe not out loud, but definitely in my head. It's happening all the time, without a doubt. I'm always bouncing ideas, like, off myself, I guess. And I'm pretty good at seeing all sides of it, you know? And not just being, like, cheerleader for the one I want, for the outcome I want of it. I'm like, I'll look at all sides of it, and, like, you know, that doesn't mean I'm not going to make an emotional decision, but at least I see the negative outcomes of maybe doing that.
Yeah.
And I just decide, it's worth it. All right, you know, we'll go with it.
And there's a science behind it. Like, you're saying something out loud, and that makes it more real. And so instead of just running it through your head, saying it out loud kind of gives you, like, foresight into the repercussions of what could happen. Instead of getting into an argument and saying it out loud for the first time and be like, wow, I'm a dick.
It's also a memory thing, too.
Yeah.
Saying things out loud, whether it's just meeting somebody and saying their name a few times in the conversation to remember their name or whatever it is. Like, saying things out loud definitely helps.
Yeah, actually right now I'm working on a graphic novel, and there's probably every part that I've committed to memory was parts that I was driving. I came up with in my head and said out loud in order to really solidify it and get, like, the actual, you know, especially in writing, you have to get the voice of someone saying it. Yeah. So, you know, I'll throw on a stupid voice just to really make sure it sounds like something that would really come out of, like, a thick Brooklyn accent or something, you know, like. That's
also how I, when I used to rap, I don't do it anymore, because I went through a phase where I really didn't like hearing my voice recorded, played back. I was like, really? That's what I sound like? Like, no one's gonna fucking listen to that. It's like almost like that Kevin Hart skit where he's like, my voice is too small. I can't be a rapper. No one take me seriously. And, like, that's almost what I felt like. But I also had a problem where I never remembered any of my own lyrics. Like, I'd record something and, like, not remember it. And I was like, how come I can recite, like, half of Jay-Z's songs? I'm like, it's because I keep listening to them and saying them out loud all the time and rapping with them. So then when I started playing my own stuff back, like in the car or whatever, I would actually remember my verses and stuff.
Which, speaking of, I want to say Jay-Z said he never writes anything down.
But
that's crazy to me.
But because he's always saying it out loud, though.
Yeah.
You know, to him, whether it's to himself, by himself, out loud, like, he's probably constantly going over it.
You just completely changed the way I visualize Jay-Z as a person who walks around constantly saying, like, parables that happen to rhyme. You know, and, like, just constantly, you know. Of course, the first thing that popped into my head was that American Gangster song where all of a sudden he's just like, apple orchard, go out to the orchard. Like, he's just like it seems like he forgot what he was doing and then he had to kind of rebuild back. Like, oh yeah, this is a rap song. I need to.
Somebody tagged me in something about their, like, 10 top hip hop albums, and I have to respond to it and put mine. but I forgot about American Gangster as like
That's a really good album.
Awesome fucking album.
Beautiful
like,
level of production.
And when it came out, I remember being a big proponent of it. I'm like, yo, lyrically and production wise, this is one of the best albums like almost ever made. Like this is really good. But when I was thinking about the list in my head, just off the top of my head, I was like, well, Reasonable Doubt has to go in there because that's my all-time favorite album pretty much. And I was like, and the Black Album is right there too. Like that was really fucking good. Like every single track. Blueprint's not on it for me. It's not in my top 10. And it's in a lot of people's, but for me, I felt like the production was awesome, and I feel lyrically it just didn't match. I feel like it was down a couple levels, you know? And I remember thinking that at the time, too. But anyway, I was like, Black Album was more of a balance of both. Awesome production, and he was on point. And I, at the time, you know, a couple days ago, I definitely left out American Gangster. And I did a whole article for StrongIsland.com for their magazine issue about like top 5 Jay-Z albums or something. And it's when The Holy Grail came out. And I remember I had American Gangster in there. I'm like, everyone overlooks this album. And it's fucking awesome. Like, lyrically, it's so on point. Production-wise, everything meshes well. Like, it's a good fucking album.
Yeah,
it gets
and
overlooked.
Just the layer of, like, horns and everything in that, just so great.
It's really, really good.
I always find making top 10s next to impossible.
It is.
Because, like, you know, you have to look at, like, the influence that it had on everything afterwards. And, like, you know, sometimes there's things that, like, you know, I would consider, like, the Ramones, like a really important band, and they might go in some sort of top 10, even if they're not my favorite band, because I know everything that came after that was like looking at that, you know?
And I was thinking of this list, and I was like, well, I have to put that this is my top 10 and why it is, you know? I'm like, this is my personal one because of whatever I was going through at life in the time. These are the ones that really stood out for me, the ones I was listening to all the time, whatever it is. So it's not like and regions is going to matter with that too. Like my list growing up in New York is going to be way different from someone growing up in LA.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not to discount that they weren't just as important, those albums or this or that, but to them they were, because that's what they were listening to when they were going through whatever they were going through at that time in their life, you know? So if you feel like sometimes there should be an obvious one that should be on everybody's top 10, that you're almost like, oh, how can I not put that? But it's because it has to be personal.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
That's the only way you can do an adequate list. If you just like try to put like, oh, the top 10 most influential hip hop albums of all time, there are a few that some people are going to agree on. You know, like I would say NWA's first album or The Chronic, like most people will agree on that because, again, everything that came after it, you know? And you might even go further back, be like, well, if you're going to put that, then really, you know, Ice-T should actually probably, one of his albums should probably be in there before that because they came out first and it lended itself to that.
And then, you know, hip hop,
it's like, how do you not put that man as an album? How do you not put that as a single? Like, it was one of the first ones that got, you know, radio play and stuff like that, and that really blew up. So it does. That's why I was like, you know what, I have to attack this list as my personal.
And then you didn't even mention like any of my favorite, like any Public Enemy albums, like.
Because for me, that's not what I was listening to growing up at the time. You know,
and
I mean, I was aware of it, and I've heard songs, and there's some I like, but. As whole albums, that just wasn't it.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's funny because that changed the face of hip hop. I mean, I feel like they were one of the first people to really sample James Brown, which is like the most sampled man in the world. Yeah. They were the first people to be so serious about scratching. Terminator X was like revolutionized the scratch game. I feel like a lot of the people who are famous for being DJs and stuff like that would have never even came around if they hadn't been like, oh, wow, I can do this with a record and other ththings.
Obviously a big fan of DJs in hip-hop. Like, and that's why I feel like Moment of Truth would be one of those that I have to, like, is there room in the top 10 for me on that? Because that was one of my favorite albums, you know? The Gangstar, like, almost any DJ Premier track, I fucking love them. Love that shit. That's probably one of the things that really got me into DJing was it first started with songs that I heard that had scratching on it, you know, so every DJ Premier beat to me was fucking awesome, and, you know, a lot of his hooks were scratched hooks, and then, you know, I listened to a lot of Hot 97, so, like, the mixtapes of, like, DJ Clue and Funkmaster Flex and stuff like that, like, I like that shit. The more I actually got into it and became a DJ, I was like, okay, can you stop bringing the song back 37 times? But at the time, I'm like, well, how's he doing that, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then getting into, like, the DMC stuff is just a whole different level, which is, like, actual turntablism and like really making new instrumentals and new beats out of existing stuff, like, and I'm nowhere near mastered any of that shit, just scratching the surface. Is like the technical skill in it is ridiculous, you know?
And no one wants to hear that, current white people are doing anything revolutionary in, scratching, but like the Beastie Boys on whatever album had
Mixmaster Mike
he is insane. He hooked up like a wah-wah pedal to it. Like he's out of control, and like he's so out of control they have a song that's just a Mixmaster Mike song that they like chant his name because he's so great.
I remember watching their performance on the MTV Movie Awards. It had to be in between 98 and 2001 because I remember the apartment that I was living in and watching it, and I taped it on the VHS, and then I taped that onto a cassette so I could play the performance on my radio wherever I went, because it was so fucking dope. It was the performance of Intergalactic that they did, and Mixmaster Mike had his own little spotlight, like solo part and stuff, and it was so fucking... Oh, it's probably gonna show up so loud.
Yeah, I saw that peaking.
But it was so fucking awesome, and there's the whole subject. A part of me is not mad, but like, it just looks at it a little different that Eminem is so nice because it you can't not have the angle of him being white in it, but it's like if he was, he's just fucking nice. Like if he was black, it would still be like he's fucking nice. Like he's really dope. I don't know if he would have maybe sold as many records or whatever. Like I guess that plays into it in some way, like with the exposure and stuff, but. It's weird that it's hard to argue against him being one of like the baddest fucking rappers ever, you know? And I feel like some people feel some type of way about that because he is white, you know?
So I think, now I personally am not a big fan of Eminem. I think some of what he gains credibility for is actually being white. And I think part of also his appeal is his voice and how it is very white.
I don't disagree.
Like, same thing with like the Beastie Boys. Like they had those very white voices and they knew exactly how to play it. The funniest thing to hear is like a person who grew up in the suburbs trying to have a voice like LL Cool J or something, like, and trying to like really have like serious bass to their voice that they don't have. And sometimes people will like wonder why like their rap sounds so wrong or stiff, and it's because you're not using your own voice. How is this going to be natural if you're not? It's not even what you really sound like, you know.
And it was even some of the rappers back in the day, the black rappers, like did that too. Like they over like characterized their voice, and like Rakim was one of the first ones that was like, well, this is the way I talk, so I'm just gonna rap this way, and like just used his voice and almost rap like he was talking, you know. Yeah,
and it's like, it's just so funny that like, you know, there's no one thing that you can tie down that's going to make someone qualified to be like the best, you know.
Exactly, and it's that perspective too. Everybody's gonna look at it a little different and values some characteristics more than others. So that, but again, you have to like, if you can look at it from all angles and be like, and accept that, all right, I can see how you think that way, you know. And my examples in Eminem stuff would be just like the rhyme schemes in a lot of his songs. It was just, and the flow of it, the way it's constructed, and a lot of them is just, it's fucking insane. Even if you can obviously tell listening to it, but if you like read it and stuff, you'd be like, damn, there's a lot going on in there. Whether it's double entendre stuff, alliteration, just the rhyme scheme of like, it could be 5 sentences and every word is matching up the rhyme with the one before it, and those 5 sentences actually make awesome sense. You know, it just wasn't putting them in there to get them the rhyme and stuff. You know, and I'm coming from, I guess, I have a weird perspective too, because when I came up listening to hip hop, like I was into a lot of underground stuff. So it's like I feel like I have a good perspective on it, like where I've heard fucking almost everything, and it's hard for me to argue against him being one of the fucking nicest, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Again, everybody's looking at it a little different, and everybody's gonna have their own personal favorite. I'm not even saying he's my favorite MC. Jay-Z actually is. But if they were gonna battle, Eminem would eat the shit out of Jay-Z, I think, you know? Like,
I wonder, though, because Jay-Z has that whole angle if he doesn't write anything down. So I wonder if part of... I mean, you've heard Big L freestyle. And
Big L's one of my favorite rappers ever.
And they come from, like, the same world, you know, him and Jay-Z. So I wonder if, you know, if it came down to a freestyle, if Eminem would be as good. Because I feel like you were saying, when you read out the Eminem stuff, it's really written out. And I wonder if that has an effect on him. Like, maybe because he grew up in Detroit, he was amazing at, you know, this, like, urban world and, like, relating to that. But then also, like, him being... And this is all me talking out of my ass. I don't know if any of this is true. But maybe also him being a white kid in that area, he was given a clearer expectation of success. And was able to, you know, just become better at writing in general.
I don't know, only because, like, it's not like he grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, so it's like, I feel like when you're in, like, the trailer park of wherever, I don't think a lot of it is expected, really. I don't know if you are expected to really do too much. You know what I'm saying? Just like you can make the argument that, like, like, black kids from the inner city, like, there's that stigma that they're not going to expect it to amount to much either. I think it's the same thing for white kids at a trailer park. You know, like, that's the similarity of it.
Yeah.
Like, no one's like, oh, you're gonna probably be a doctor when you grow up. You know, like, I don't know if that's what is going on there. And I think being in the urban environment of Detroit and being one of the few white kids that are going to be in that element of, like, you know, going to the hip hop shows and stuff like that, it's probably a lot harder because they expect more in a way, not like they expect you to be awesome, but you're gonna have to do a lot to impress them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To stand out and actually get their support. You know?
But you'd be surprised the amount of ambition that you see people lose in those situations when they're, like, when they have nothing to aspire to, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, even when you're teaching in an advantage school and you see that there's, like, you know, black people in this advantage school that could be doing better but aren't, it's because, you know, like I was saying, orange is the new black is, you know, the cool thing. And sometimes achieving isn't a cool thing for black people to, like, want to aspire to. And it's, like, causing almost, like, this, like, downward spiral towards their culture of, like, fear of being great at something, you know?
And then being, like, ridiculed for it.
Yeah. And so I wonder if, even if, like, something as small as that had a hand in that. I mean, they actually say that if you tell a class of people that they can do anything in the world, that they'll achieve more than a class of people that are told, like a classroom, not like a, you know, a social class, than a class of people who are told, you know, life is hard, it's going to be hard out there for you. And
give up now.
Yeah, and that's why I always hate when people are like, oh, kids get babied so much now and stuff like that. And to an extent they do, but at the same time, like, if you don't tell them that the world's their oyster, they're never going to think that it possibly ever could be, you know?
I definitely agree with that. You need positive reinforcement. But what's weird about the kids being babied, too, is, like, and I guess it definitely ties into the Adrian Peterson thing, it's like, we were, I say my generation and the generation before me were raised in a way where, like, yeah, you might get hit if you're fucking up, you know? And we had, like, dodgeball and stuff, and we climbed trees and fell out of them, and
yeah,
and
I do think to an extent, like,
and,
there is...
But what's weird about it to me now is, like, there's so much babying going on, but it's by people that are parents that were kids of my generation, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but we lived through all that, why are you babying your kids so much now? Like,
yeah.
I just don't get it. It's like, you already lived through it and know, like, it's gonna be cool. You know what I'm saying? It'll probably be alright.
Well,
like,
so, disclaimer, the Adrian Peterson thing, completely different than the way we got whooped as kids.
No,
like,
no, maybe you and me, but a lot of kids from either down south and stuff like that. I mean, I obviously I didn't live there, but I've heard stories from, like, first-hand accounts from people. They're like, yeah, that's pretty fucking common.
Yeah,
you know, there's a big chunk of the population that got beat like that as a kid.
You know, racism and sexism are common too, but, you know, it doesn't mean it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think what it comes down to is, you know, in the Adrian Peterson situation, he hit his kid so hard with a switch, I believe it was, that he went to several doctors.
No, yeah, it was damaging.
Like, if you hit your kid so hard that they can't sit in class the next day, then you've caused, like, a huge problem. If, you know, your kid, you know, like, I've seen so many kids growing up that should have been smacked in the mouth that weren't, you know, for, like, talking back to their parents. Like, I feel like that's a different world than, you know, getting, like... Especially, he's, like, a pro athlete. Just have your mom do it. Have your wife do it at that point, you know? Like,
well, I don't think they were together. The kid's mom, that's what it was. So it was just him. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating beating your kids, but especially not to that degree. But I also take it from, I guess, the perspective that, like, I mean, I didn't get beat or hit a lot, but it was happened, like, once or twice, you know, where I was in the wrong and it happened. So it's like, that I don't. It's hard to say like, oh, the parent should go to jail for that. You know?
Yeah,
or
I don't
can
necessarily
lose their rights or whatever it is, get the kid taken away for something that happens like that, because sometimes that happens. If it's repeated and you're abusing the kid, there's a difference. But I feel like there's more of a clear line. Sometimes some of the stuff you see is just that, oh, you know, they did slap him in the mouth because they were talking out in public, and then like they get reported or something.
Yeah.
And when there's no other evidence of like the kid being hurt or abused or hit all the time or something, where it's like you would have done the same shit to your kid too, probably. But there's also a lot of research and stuff. Who's the one dude who talks about it a lot? I think it's Stefan Molyneux, about the actual effects of like spanking your kids, like the psychological effects on it, and I don't know how they measured it or whatever, but they were like, yeah, no, it could affect how your kid thinks, and especially at the certain ages while their brain's still developing and everything, they're taking in this violence basically.
Yeah.
And it definitely just forms how they are in relationships later in life and stuff like that, especially if it's happening, you know, constantly, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, here and there, one good spank on the ass if you're really fucking up. I guess I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Louis C.K. even has a joke about, like, you're basically teaching your kid, like, when you can't get someone to see your side, just fucking hit them, and they'll get it, you know? And it's, like, that's crazy to think of, and, like, I think a lot of people who are parents don't think of that, like, if I do this, I'm teaching them this.
And you know why? Because they were spanked as kids, too. They're just like, well, I was spanked, and I'm fucking okay, I guess. They think they're okay. They might not be.
Yeah, that's one of those things. You always hear those people who are like, I got hit as a kid and I'm okay. It's like, you're not the guy who decides that.
Exactly. It's like, no. When I met you, first thought wasn't like, oh, this guy's okay.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can't see that.
Yeah, you never get that nice ray of sunshine who's accomplished everything in their life. That's like, no, yeah, I got beat as a kid and that helped me, you know, find my center.
Yeah,
like,
I guess it's again just the way everybody takes in the information. Like, for some people, that might be a motivating factor, you know, to, even if they have, like, shitty parents that are actually abusive, like, well, I don't want to stay around here, I'm going to do something to get myself out of this situation. But there's also plenty that have the opposite effect that become, like, you know, like, I don't want to say shy, like an introvert or something like that.
Yeah, like just squeamish about anything.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And then, because the same exact thing happened, you know, it's just it's weird how everybody just has different reactions to it.
Yeah.
You know, again, there's just not one way for everybody to eat. There's not one way to treat everybody and say like, oh, this is okay for half the people, and not okay for the rest of them. So you spank that kid every now and then. This kid you probably shouldn't touch.
You see that kid shaking already?
There.
He's shaking already. Don't hit him.
Yeah. I'm sure he's seen the error in his ways. All right? Let's not fuck him up for life. So I think that's we're on 2 hours. I think that's good.
Yeah, we'll set you free now.
Yeah, we tried to end this 20 minutes ago. We just kept going, but that's a good sign. I feel like that's a good sign. So, I am trying to get an author that we know to come on our next.
That's funny. I was going to suggest that.
She actually wanted to come on this one because I talked to her a couple weeks ago, and I was like, let's get this first one going and let's get a kind of a routine again and see if you were going to be here all the time or whatever and this and that. So I'm trying to get her next week. Shouldn't be a problem. God damn, I don't know where that conversation can go. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. If you want to get a little insight into where this conversation could go, try to download her book. I think you can download it. It's called Freak by Rebecca O'Donnell. It's basically an autobiography, and it's fucking out there. And this is what happens when you don't treat your kids right, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
You treat them the opposite of right. It's Freak, the true story of an insecurity addict.
Yes,
that
my
should
apologies.
make it easier to find.
Yeah. And it definitely is on stuff like Amazon. You can find it. I'm not 100% sure if it's downloadable, but you can definitely order the book. And they're good. You get it in a couple days, I guess. We are working on the audiobook to it. It's actually all recorded, but it's not uploaded yet. We got to figure out that stuff. I recorded it with her, over the course of, it's been like 2 years now. It was a pretty big task, but we got it done, and it's gonna come out pretty decent.
It's voiced by James Mason.
Yeah,
And
she actually did a real good. She did it herself. She did a really good job.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
Yeah, of narrating it. And it was weird because as I'm like mixing some of the stuff down, and I don't have a professional recording studio, so there is a little noise floor. There's some room noises you hear, whatever. It's nothing crazy. But again, I've heard the whole book. I've read the book, and as I was going back to it, mixing it down, I would catch myself listening to it again on some of the parts where I was like, I can't believe that fucking happened.
Yeah.
I can't believe this person would do this or whatever it was. And it's stuff that I've heard 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before, and I knew it was coming, but I was just like catching myself sitting there listening to it again, like, God damn.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe check that out before she comes on, hopefully next week. Or just check in next week anyway, and I'm sure a whole bunch of that shit will come up. It's been On Track with DJ Traction. You'll be able to find it on iTunes and Mr. Foxy-Jackson. Kind of rhymes a little. Ooh, this is...
DJ Traction and Foxy Jackson.
I like this. I like where this is going. So, yeah, until next week, you can reach myself at DJ Traction on Twitter, djtraction@gmail.com. You can always just hit me up if you want, us to talk about something particular or questions to ask for guests that we have on ahead of time that you know about, or whatever it is, or just to talk shit. You can do that too. I'm all for freedom of speech, so I don't care what it is. Where can they reach you if you want people bothering you?
I don't want people bothering me.
You can't tell the internet that.
So
you cannot tell the internet that. It's
fuck y'all.
I was gonna say you better not leave an email. You're getting mad like butthole pics and stuff.
I am the only Erik Fox-Jackson in the world, so look for that. It's Erik with a K though. If you write it with a C, I'll be forced to hurt you.
He could do it. All right, we're signing off. Till next time. Peace, love, and happiness.